Chapter 161. She stealthily hid a syringe in her hand and would wait for the moment when a client, lost in the afterglow and unguarded, would be viciously struck. Almost no one could defend against it. And then they'd be at the mercy of others. Literally at their mercy. All the money, human tissue, organs, and so on were under their control. This was the maximization of value and one of their main sources of funding. After all, countless people disappeared in the illegal land every day. Who would care about the lower class? This was the insane Night City. This was the law of the jungle in the illegal land. But she furrowed her brows slightly because Su Chi didn't come closer. The lady asked with a seductive tone, "What are you waiting for, dear client?" Su Chi hesitated and said awkwardly, "Sorry, I'm a bit shy, embarrassed really. You're spending money to play, but you're embarrassed? What the hell is this act?" "Then let me help you," she said softly as she stood up, smiling. Su Chi shook his head again. "No, I don't like being passive. I prefer taking the initiative." The lady thought there was something wrong with this man. She smiled and asked, "Then what do you think we should do?" And the next moment, Su Chi proposed a solution. "How about this? My shyness stems from us being strangers to each other, not knowing each other well. Shall we have a chat first?" "A chat, my ass." The lady clenched her fist that hid the syringe, maintaining a smile. All right, talk to me. I'm listening. I'll introduce myself. I am Su Buxian. I don't like being idle. I like to find things to do for myself, and I'm not a fan of following the rules. Spent most of the daytime feeling a headache from the assembly line, so I chose to come here to relax. I'm also good at quite a few things, have won a number of awards. People call me the sect hierarch of the hustlers. Listening to Su Chi's incessant talk, the lady's expression became a little dazed. Is he nuts? Normally, some clients do like to babble, but only after the deed, not before. And what's with all this nonsense you're spouting? Who's listening? What being good at things, what sect hierarch of the hustlers, what wanting to be the boss of Night City? The lady couldn't stand it anymore. She couldn't wait any longer. She quietly sent a message to her accomplices, asking them to get ready, and then slowly approached. "Keep talking. I'm listening. But you do seem quite stressed, dear client, and I can't just do nothing about it, right? Let me give you a massage first." "Okay." Su Chi didn't refuse, but murmured to himself, "Actually, coming to this place is much more relaxing than during the daytime. Of course, this place is meant to bring everyone happiness, a vent for all stress." "Indeed," Su Chi murmured. "It's like coming home, feeling like you can finally do whatever you want." "Really?" The lady slowly pulled out the syringe, her tone tempting. "And soon I will make you feel even happier, never wanting to leave." "Thank you, you're really quite nice. Starting from you was definitely the right choice." "Of course." She slowly approached Su Chi, and then viciously plunged it in. Meanwhile, Rainier Vale and the others were also gathering information, their expressions gradually becoming solemn as they realized that this place was indeed dangerous. Amidst the chaos, two powerful forces were entrenched here. Giles' crowd ran a large number of nightclubs, bars, pleasure venues, peddling various illicit drugs, along with several gambling parlors and live animal fighting venues. Another power was the Black Emperor, who mainly dealt in weapons, prosthetics, and heavy firepower. Their merchandise was all unbranded products, and behind the curtain, they were involved in robbery, brawling, murder, and all manner of evil activities, including the trafficking of human organs. We're in trouble. We mustn't provoke these two forces. Even though they're not as powerful as the main city, they are still formidable entities for players. This was more than just ordinary cyberpunk, with many of their prosthetic bodies patched with pollutants, embodying abnormal shapes, not to be underestimated in combat. Moreover, Rainier Vale looked solemnly at a group of people in the distance. There are also a number of other players seeking opportunities to join these two perilous forces. Chapter 162. Hope Su Buxian doesn't get affected. Su Chi pinched the empty syringe between his fingers and muttered to himself, "I see. Full anesthesia." Apart from speaking, My body can't move at all. Awesome. Awesome. Do you have any more of this? The lady and the other three were lying on the ground, paralyzed, glaring at Su Chi, who was sitting in the chair. We are high-ranking members of the Black Emperor Gang. Got it? And then? Su Chi rummaged through a nearby cabinet, pulling out a surgical knife set and a row of electronic tools he had never seen before. You guys have quite the assortment of tools here. Seems like you do this kind of thing often. He took the tools out of the cabinet. All four were transformed bodies, their numerous prosthetics serving various functions. Mechanical palms that could shoot lasers, electronic eyes with surveillance capabilities, a high-explosive hand grenade tucked in the abdomen, a biological power pump. Even mixed with abnormal flesh, not only compatible with the prosthetics but also providing additional traits. This was the reason they possessed superhuman strength. If you dare to touch us, our boss Adam Hammer definitely won't let this slide. Su Chi, however, put on gloves. Looks like your boss really is a man of loyalty. What are you going to do? The four's eyes widened. What do you think? Su Chi looked at their fearful eyes and slowly pulled out the surgical knife. Don't be afraid. This is something you do often, isn't it? And don't worry, I just want what's inside your bodies. Once I extract it, you'll naturally be able to live. Their fear uncontrollably radiated from their eyes. They were all too familiar with this procedure. Many customers watched in numb horror as their body parts were removed piece by piece. Only now the roles were reversed. It was they who lay there. The four's eyes trembled. How can you not trust me? I always keep my word. They had no choice. They were at the mercy of someone else. It seemed like the other party was just interested in the prosthetics inside their bodies, and if the operation went well, they might still have a chance to survive. The movements were quite professional. There was even a disinfection step, though the body was fully anesthetized. Even though this meant losing their valuable prosthetics, they had to accept their fate. Right? Su Chi, holding the surgical knife and the mechanical tool, asked, "How are these things used again?" The four's eyes widened in shock. So you don't know jack shit. Don't glare at me. I'm short on time. If you don't teach me, I'll just DIY it. They watched Su Chi's smile, their hearts trembling uncontrollably, wondering what kind of freak they had encountered. So, for the next few minutes, they provided oral instruction, teaching how to dissect their own body parts. All right, sounds simple enough. The four watched in horror as Su Chi flipped the knife skillfully, like writing with a brush, and began to work. Bro, that's my biological blood vessel circuit. You have to remove my microgenerator first. Yes, right next to the synthetic lobe. That's an electronic shock bomb. Please be gentle. Don't set it off, or the mechanical prosthetic will malfunction. This is my controller. The port contains the internal access data for Black Emperor locations. Shit, I'm bleeding out. Stay calm. Su Chi held the surgical knife. I'm not panicking, so why should you? Bullshit. I'm the one bleeding out. This person almost cursed it out loud, but they dared not shout it out, considering they were the ones being dissected. Su Chi thought they had chosen a good location. Even if there was shouting, it would be muffled, and to prevent guests from contacting the outside world via built-in communications, there were signal blockers. So even if they made any noise, no one would come near. 10 minutes later, Su Chi put all the dismantled parts and prosthetics into his item slot and transferred all of their cyber coins as well. These guys followed the style of the city. They hadn't saved much cyber coin, but altogether they had about 5,000. Plus the parts and weapons. They totaled around 20,000 cyber coins. This is illegal land where people avoid being exploited by Night City's capital by choosing physical exploitation instead. Quick money. Su Chi also took the paralysis compound they used. This stuff was good, just a little bit could completely paralyze a person, rendering them immobile on the ground. As for the four who had been opened up like boxes, their truth laid bare. They had already grown cold and showed no signs of life. Su Chi had promised, but not one of them had survived. Sigh. He had accidentally severed several key arterial conduits, and that was that. Life is so fragile. But only 20 minutes have passed, faster than I had expected. Su Chi stretched out his hand to close the door. Next, he had to continue his mission. Although thousands of players had been granted a high degree of freedom and points for key achievements, one must not forget. The main quest had not yet been clearly defined. The main quest is the endpoint. No matter how many points were accumulated, only by completing the main quest could they be fully confirmed. One location is Main City. From what I've seen, everyone has to follow the rules or contact the elites, seeking opportunities. Another is Illegal Land. After all, it's a massive group. Although dangerous, it's filled with unbridled freedom. Generally speaking, players would choose to contact one side or the other. But Su Chi thought such matters required a two-pronged approach. He had already almost learned about Illegal Land from the mouths of the Four, and through the controller data had gained a deep understanding of the so-called Black Emperor forces. The boss of Black Emperor, named Adam Hammer. He was already a powerful mutant, and after undergoing prosthetic modification and consuming a plethora of prohibited drugs, with his steel skin, molten furnace heart, and active propulsion, his strength reached terrifying heights, dominating the scene. Moreover, possessing a large number of subordinates and weapons, such a guy entrenched here with a strong, brutal style, gradually developed the evil force known as the Black Emperor. Giles Crowd is the same. Their boss, named Poker K, gathers wealth. He's old and deep, sly and crafty, and they are mortal enemies. Su Chi slowly moved towards Giles Crowd's territory. Of course, before going, he had to disguise himself first. The liquid metal moved slowly, connecting most of the useful parts, and even the Black Emperor's unique tattoo appeared on his back. And now, he, Su Chi, was a high-ranking member of the Black Emperor gang. At the moment, he was preparing to stir up trouble in the damn rival territory of Giles Crowd, because they killed 4 of his deeply loyal gang companions. Clang, clang, clang. The gym's bell swung. Transformer Eric is dead. Congratulations to Shatter Killer Frost for the victory. This is Shatter Killer's 25th win tonight. Let's cheer for him. Oh yeah. The large crowd in the venue let out a frenzy of shouts. Meanwhile, in the private box, Poker K, with a cigar clamped in his mouth, coldly watched through the glass. Boring? Are there no stronger opponents arranged? Shatter Killer isn't even taking this seriously yet. Shatter Killer Frost was a super transformed human created at great expense by him. He was the trump card of Giles Crowd. Boss, there have been quite a few people wanting to join our gang recently. Please take a look at the list. Someone handed him a list. Poker K glanced at it. So many more than before? Give them a low-level intern gang member status first. Assess them for a couple of days. The two gangs had completely different requirements for joining. For Giles Crowd, it was all about tributes. In short, pay money, then carry out some shady tasks, only then could one get rid of the intern status within the gang. The Black Emperor, on the other hand, valued strength. One had to complete violent, dangerous tasks to qualify for membership. Boss! At that moment, someone rushed in anxiously. Boss! Something bad has happened. Poker K looked at him expressionlessly and didn't speak. A henchman by his side frowned fiercely and slapped the intruder, sending him flying. Who, did you say had it bad? The man crashed into the wall, clutching his face, his eyes trembling. He had forgotten. The one thing his boss hated most was to hear ominous words. Start by telling me what happened, Poker K said calmly, seemingly not angered by the interruption. The man hurriedly began to tremble and speak. A member of the Black Emperor came to one of our casinos to stir up trouble. What kind of trouble? He kept winning, and all our cheating devices couldn't stop him, so we were about to get physical. This was the rule of Giles Crowd. Their casinos had no regard for honesty. Winning was fine, but if one won too much, they wouldn't hesitate to make that person disappear. And then, Poker K expressionlessly picked up his glass, took a sip, and asked, Our guys aren't so incompetent that they can't handle a mere Black Emperor member, are they? The man lowered his head. Boss, that guy. He had the Black Emperor's cyber-electric high-explosive bomb. He's a high-ranking member. He set off an explosion, destroyed half the casino. Then he fled, and our people are chasing him. Crack! Poker K suddenly crushed the glass in his hand. His face darkened. Very well. Very well. The Black Emperor's dogs. They can't stay quiet, can they? These days everyone minded their own business, and now they pull this? Boss, what should we do? Send more people, catch that guy. Then tie him up in the square and execute him publicly. Poker K directed another person. And what about me? The man from the casino asked, bewildered. You. Poker K's palm gently opened to reveal an electromagnetic barrel, and the next moment, with a boom, the man's eyes filled with disbelief as he was pierced through, revealing the wires in his chest. Then he collapsed to the ground, dead. People who don't follow rules truly annoy me. Poker K slowly withdrew his hand, gazing at the bone breaker below, and gently sipped the remaining wine. At the same time, the troublemaker, Su Chi, was sprinting through the bustling streets. Catch him! Damn Black Emperor gang member! Su Chi raged. Everything I do is for revenge. The numerous pursuers were also incredibly fast. Their knees and legs had been modified, granting them propulsion. Elsewhere, many players were startled by the commotion and, watching the scene, didn't dare to get close, quickly getting out of the way. Transhumans became ferocious with the support of weapons and mutants, possessing astonishing combat capabilities. And there were so many of them. Who were they chasing? Boss, what should we do? A player looked to the white-haired man in front of them. The white-haired man remained calm. Don't get involved. Neither of these two forces is something players can contend with. Next, we had better find a chance to join one of them, even if at a very low level, to at least get a layer of identity. Understood. And Rainier Vale was also nearby, in an alley, cautiously observing the streets full of pursuers. What's happened? Fatty asked, peering curiously. Looks dangerous. Rainier Vale spoke gravely. Seems to be a grudge between two gangs, but it's none of our business. However, in this direction. He sighed. Let's hope Su Buxian doesn't get caught up in it. Chapter 163. Boss of Lawless Place. Time flew by. Over an hour later, Rainier Vale and the others cautiously arrived at the previously agreed-upon location, shocked to find the area had been leveled to the ground. It seemed there had been a fierce battle. What happened here? I'm not sure. Just knew that Giles' crowd and Black Emperor's people just battled. Numerous bystanders stood far away, watching. I arrived early. Giles' crowd's firepower burst forth, flattening the streets. Then I saw the person being chased crying over 4 bodies. Then, Black Emperor's reinforcements arrived. Without a second word, both sides, red-eyed, started fighting. It was extremely brutal. Rainier Vale and others trembled at the sight, fearing, perhaps Su Buxian. Damn, that kid is probably gone. The middle-aged man sighed. Fatty, lucky I didn't go. Now what do we do? Ponytail asked softly. Rainier Vale shook his head, about to speak, when the electronic clock struck midnight, and the neon lights of Night City shone even brighter. It was past midnight. Simultaneously, a box popped up in front of all the players' vision. Please note, the first day has ended, and according to statistics, all players' assets have reached a total of 5 million cyber coins. The main quest will be officially unlocked. Oh! Rainier Vale was startled. 5 million already? That fast? Thousands of players, if they earned 1,500 cyber coins each during the day, it would total about 1.5 million. It seems some people have mastered making money. Main quest. 15 days from now, Stars Hall will host a grand celebration of Night City and an auction, gathering a plethora of rare items from around the world with mysterious figures attending. Player optional quests. 1. Enter Stars Hall. 2. Acquire an auction item, need an official seat, and the item can be taken out of the instance. 3. Reach 100 Alliance prestige. At least 100 VIP seats must have a deep impression of you. Please note, if a player is killed, they'll lose 1,000 points to respawn, elimination if points drop to 0, and 70% of their cyber coins will be plundered. Rainier Vale's face tensed. Did you all see this? Several nodded. Stars Hall. Just the ticket costs 500,000 cyber coins. Can we make it just by working? That would be very hard. By the calculations, even if someone made 1,000 per hour, working 20 hours straight each day, it would barely touch the 500,000 ticket fee threshold after 15 days, and that's still not enough. Unless our wages increase significantly, there's no way. The middle-aged man frowned tightly. Just then, someone spoke calmly. It seems you are quite troubled. Rainier Vale was startled and looked over to see the curly-haired young man who had just appeared beside the silver-haired man. He immediately became cautious. After all, everyone knew players could plunder each other, and killing an opponent would directly deduct 1,000 points. Currently, nobody had accumulated points, and dying meant immediate elimination. Don't be nervous, the curly-haired young man said with a light smile. I'm not here to be your enemy. And besides, your few thousand cyber coins are hardly worth my effort. Indeed, after seeing the main quest, players would surely try to make money through various means such as illegal activities, smuggling, and robbery among others. It made sense to plunder when everyone's wallet had fattened. So what do you want from us? Rainier Vale had noticed earlier that the man in white below was touching base with other players. Many anonymous-type players were in the rankings. Although the person before him seemed laid-back, he was likely not simple, following the white-dressed man, perhaps another big shot from a top club. Simply to invite you to join our alliance. The curly-haired young man spoke softly. Alliance? Rainier Vale spoke gravely. What do you mean? In this instance, besides us and another top club from Free City, the rest are a large number of solo players. The curly-haired young man calmly looked towards the distance. They have already gained some power in the main city area, gathered other dangerous players, and formed an alliance. And we, naturally, won't sit still. We've also communicated with a large number of players and established an opposing alliance. Rainier Vale frowned tightly, realizing these two top organizations had already moved so fast. They'd already formed 2 alliances. You might still be weighing options, so let me explain further. The curly-haired young man spoke gently. Those guys are a bunch of madmen. They have already recruited many dangerous players. When the time is ripe, they will inevitably encircle other players and plunder wealth. By then, do you think your few people can escape? Rainier Vale was silent. Indeed, the other party was right. Given the circumstances, these solo players of no significant strength only had the choice to join one of these alliances. What benefits do we get by joining? We promise, at the least, to get you into Stars Hall, completing the first main quest. At this, their interest was piqued instantly. They had just been worrying about the first task, and now being directly promised by a top club seemed powerful indeed. After hesitation for a few seconds, Rainier Vale chose to join. After exchanging IDs, the curly-haired young man spoke softly. Our alliance is named Order. Continue working during the day, and if there are any related money-making tasks, we will communicate with you using communicators. Additionally, establish contacts with the 2 major forces in illegal land. It's best to become a probationary member of their gang. Rainier Vale watched the others leave, falling into silence. Did we just join? Fatty asked, puzzled. Can we trust this guy? The middle-aged man hesitated. Is the opportunity he promised to get into Stars Hall real? Rainier Vale slowly shook his head. I'm not sure, but they are a top club, certainly very capable. Let's follow their plan for now. Meanwhile, elsewhere, the man in white watched the territory of Giles' crowd quietly, but did not choose to enter. We've spent a lot, and it wasn't easy to contact the senior exec of a company in the main city, We've obtained the credentials for trade channels. A woman next to him pushed her glasses up. Next, as long as we can negotiate with the two forces in the illegal land, we can smuggle and sell unauthorized products, allowing other players to undertake various transport and trade tasks to earn money. But, she gritted her teeth, just when everything was going smoothly, why did two gangs start a shootout? This completely disrupted their plans. With two forces entrenched here, both formidable, you see Main City turning a blind eye. Establishing a middle channel required substantial sincerity and capital. Now, with the shootout, we can't even meet the other boss. What's your name? Su Buxian. Adam Hammer, the boss of Black Emperor, staring at the young man before him with a deep and terrifying gaze. His body was covered in thick machinery, the silvery black metal reflections bearing a lethal aura, with cold arms and weapons hidden in every nook. You! He revealed a ferocious smile. You did well before. He was now lying on a couch, enjoying a massage from a muscular man. Though fully cybernetically enhanced to an extreme, he still relished this relaxation. Partly because the muscular man's strength gave him that slight sensation of a massage. To think you're so loyal, facing the death of your companions, forcibly holding off Giles' crowd with an explosion, awaiting gang reinforcements. Su Chi sorrowfully said, "Of course, they were my guides. I'm very grateful to them. Not bad. Very good." Adam Hammer's voice was hoarse, with a bit of a booming pump mechanism, his body not just huge but with a sprouting abnormality and a violent mechanical sense after transformation. Those four had been blown to bits, their prosthetic bodies also destroyed. The clash erupted into a fierce battle, and this young man was incredibly brave at the forefront, continuously shouting, "For my brother's revenge." Adam Hammer's brow twitched slightly with a flash of ferocity. That Giles' crowd is really shameless. While friction was constant, grudges had accumulated over time, and petty acts were abundant. Direct conflict had long been absent. How dare they kill his men in broad daylight? In the lawless place, Adam Hammer's authority was established with thunderous methods and a ruthless style. Since they dared to do so, the Black Emperor naturally would repay fiercely. You've performed very well. I particularly value those with grit and strength. As long as they're willing to fight, I will not let them suffer. Adam Hammer said sternly, "Next, you'll take charge of a base. I'll assign 10 members to follow you." Su Chi paused. He had initially just planned to blend in as a member, to infiltrate and expand, yet the progression had been unexpectedly quick. However, he coldly said, "If you can't control that base, then you'll also lose this qualification. Do you understand?" Su Chi smiled inwardly. "I will definitely not disappoint you." Illegal land was not small. After half an hour, Su Chi arrived at a base under Black Emperor, which was a commercial street selling various items. Here, shop owners had to give a portion of their turnover to Black Emperor to operate safely, especially since the area was teeming with other dangerous cyborgs, hardly peaceable. This base was not core, even somewhat remote. He was just a newbie, which was normal. Core bases typically dealt with arms, pollutants, abnormal bodies, etc. Meanwhile, 10 large men with prosthetics shimmering light, tattoos covering every inch of their skin, members of the gang, were waiting here, having just received a message from above. At this moment, their gaze at Su Chi was strange. They hadn't expected the new boss to be so ordinary, without even a mark of cyborg transformation. However, the proper address was still there. "Boss Su." Su Chi smiled and waved his hand. "Very spirited. Are we going to collect protection fees now, boss?" As just mentioned, collecting business returns from the various stores on this street amounted to collecting protection fees. From the look of this long street, there were at least 30 stores and venues, adding up every day nearly 500,000 cyber coins, just as ruthless as Main City. But these store owners were also dared not speak out. After all, Black Emperor and Giles' crowd were the kings of this illegal land. Since Su Chi was a newly arrived boss, he naturally needed to make an appearance at various shops to collect fees, demonstrating authority. "Okay," he said with a light smile. Let's take a look. Su Chi strolled from one end of the street to the other, without ever having to speak. His subordinates were already proficiently knocking on doors, gearing up and collecting protection fees. He didn't intervene. Instead, he looked at the products of the various shops. To be honest, some were quite good, although the products were unauthorized compared to those on prosthetic people in the main city. What they lacked were brand and labels, and they were priced several times lower. If they could be redesigned and mass-produced, along with being affordable, I dare not even think what they could sell for. Su Chi's eyes flickered. He had an idea, although immature and lacking support. But sometimes a commercial empire often starts with an idea. Chapter 164. Make the hustlers bigger and stronger. Illegal land. There are two kinds of people. Those who oppress others, the madly vicious. They generate riots, stop at nothing. They are the main members of Giles' crowd and the Black Emperor. The other kind is at their wits' end, forced to survive, living in poverty. This group actually makes up the majority, unable to afford all the expenses of the main city, working during the day, and at night they can only root themselves here, enjoying a filthy and cheap life, this also being the exclusive survival ground for the slums. The Black Emperor and Giles' crowd are both behemoths. If one wished to stir these two massive gang forces by oneself, there was only one path to take. Boss, this is the protection money we just collected, about 600,000 cyber coins. 10 underlings said, wanting to hand over the cyber coins they collected from various shops. Good, nicely done. Here's 50,000 for you guys as a seeing fee. The rest I will hand over, meeting the target. Su Chi made a gesture, smiled faintly. Remember, do not let it get out, the part given to you. Thank you, Boss Su. The 10 men's eyes lit up. We definitely won't let it slip. They naturally kept some of the protection money for themselves, but usually each only got 1,000 or 2,000. But they hadn't expected the newly appointed boss to be so generous. Okay. Meeting adjourned. Go have fun. Understood. Su Chi watched as the 10 men left excitedly. He muttered to himself, after all, there aren't many days left to play. He slowly retracted his gaze. The next moment, Su Chi stepped into a prosthetic machinery shop that had just paid the protection fee. The owner was a burly man. His pupils slightly trembled. They, frankly speaking, were the oppressed. Meeting the power of the Black Emperor, they could only swallow their grievances and pay up for safety. Unexpectedly, after paying, this person came again. Don't be nervous. Su Chi calmly said, Boss, I'm not a bad person. Say that again? Weren't you the one who just collected the protection money? What do you want to do? The burly shop owner quietly asked. Me? I'm here to buy something. Su Chi slowly revealed the 50,000 cyber coins he had collected. Using my money? To buy my stuff? What do you want? He asked, a hint of anger in his eyes. They had tempers too, but had been enduring for survival. But even if the other side was too outrageous, they had no capacity to retaliate. After all, how could his shop stand against these two big gangs only able to compromise and seek peace? Well, Su Chi looked around his shop, tapped on the counter of the prosthetic, weapon-selling counter. I want quite a lot of stuff, you might have to bear with it. The burly shop owner clenched his teeth. Say it. I can handle it. That remains to be seen. Su Chi showed a smile. After all, what I want to talk to you about is a very big order. A very big order? What does that mean? Now the burly man was also stunned. And who are you? 5 days. The curly-haired young man silently observed everything chaotic in illegal land. 5 days? Giles' crowd and the Black Emperor have been fighting fiercely for a full 5 days, and it's getting more intense. It's almost reached a life-and-death situation. They must be crazy. He shook his head. Right now, we don't even have the chance to meet and negotiate with the opposing boss, let alone establish channels to make money from the margins. If it weren't for a supplier named the Hustlers appearing, establishing a supply chain for us, stabilizing other players, our camp would probably have already collapsed. Xia Shirley, the man in white, remained silent. Everything that happened in the past few days indeed varied from their plans. Conflicts between Giles Crowd and the Black Emperor were uninterrupted. There was no respite. It seemed someone lit the fuse, directly causing the hatred between both sides to burst out. They naturally couldn't interfere. Moreover, that supplier named the Hustlers took 2/10 of our profits hard. The female player with glasses sighed, as if they had us completely under their thumb. No matter what, Xia Shirley was calm. It's already operating now, and all the money is for obtaining points, so there's no need to get too caught up. After all, the real rivals are the lunatics from Free City. We need to stabilize our footing before they make a move. That is the ultimate goal. Meanwhile, in Free City, people were in a reception room of a building called Life Group, led by a young man, ID Netherworld King. Life Group is one of the top elite in all of Night City, a super commercial empire that creates and develops all prosthetics. Netherworld King, his expression somber and cold, gently said, "If we succeed, that will firmly secure our position in the Night City processing department." This was their route, clinging to the elite, by bribing, heavily investing resources to get the power and position they wanted. Although it was a loss-making business initially, but once in the later stages, they could use the authority of the Night City Emergency Processing Department to carry out the cleanup and sweep of illegal land. At the same time, besiege the other players, carry out a massacre, to take all the cyber coins they had earned into their own pockets. So, rather than saying it's about obtaining points, but in the end, everything is ultimately about fighting. Netherworld King revealed a profound smile. But Xia Shirley indeed lives up to being a core member of the top club, establishing a camp in illegal land in just 3 days and getting it operational, but he can't play better than me. Chapter 165. At this moment, footsteps echoed through the corridor. The Netherworld King immediately stood up, straightened his clothes, and put on a respectful expression, looking to approach. But it was an assistant who came out. "Sorry, guests from the emergency handling department. Today is the chairman's daughter's health checkup day. We cannot receive you." The Netherworld King's eyelids sank. He looked at the transparent glass. In the distance below, a middle-aged man with pale hair was affectionately pushing a frail girl towards a car. "I understand." The Netherworld King took a deep breath and forced a smile. "I'll come back another day." He left with the others, his gaze slightly dark. Someone whispered from behind, "Boss, according to our investigation, isn't that guy's daughter supposed to have a checkup once a month? Why is it happening again now?" "I'm not sure, but since our plan has been disrupted, and we've missed the chance with this magnate, then we select another one." A faint spiritual power began to emerge around the Netherworld King. This was his trait, control, but the magnates of Night City all seemed to have spiritual power defense chips, so he could not directly control them. He could only make contact and then lower their defenses to gain their trust. Though he couldn't make them do anything illogical, trust was enough for their actions. "Su Buxian, you've really done an excellent job." Adam Hammer's voice was hoarse, but his tone was pleased. His red prosthetic eyeballs flickered with a faint light, looking at the young man in front of him. The more he looked, the more he appreciated him. He rarely complimented anyone, but now he couldn't help but admire this young man's ability. In just a few days, he had settled all the unruly troublemakers around the stronghold he took over, and during the days when they were fighting with Giles Crowd, the protection fees from those shops not only didn't decrease but doubled. The several inexplicable surprise attacks by Giles Crowd were all resolved by him, and he even preserved the other strongholds and territories. "Where do I start?" Su Chi showed a smile. "It's all thanks to the boss's prestige. I'm already more than happy to be able to contribute to our gang." Adam Hammer's eyes flashed slightly. Though pleased, he squinted and gave a raspy chuckle. "Don't talk about that flattery. I don't like that sort of thing." "Don't like it, yet why put up airs?" Su Chi pretended not to see. No matter who it was, they liked to hear compliments. "You've proven your ability, so You should be given greater responsibility. Next, you can take charge of a weapon factory stronghold for our gang. Adam Hammer's gaze was deep, with a slight sense of oppression. I remind you, that place is not for fooling around. You will have 100 gang members stationed there, and if you make any mistakes. His metal arm suddenly pointed several red lights directly at Suchi's forehead. A lethal aura and pressure spread. Grace and might combined? Suchi's expression did not change, until the red light on his forehead slowly faded. The machinery on Adam Hammer's arm retracted like scales. Swish, swish, swish. Go ahead, Suchi said with a smile. Then boss, see you next time. Although Adam Hammer had not made a move, that sense of oppression and aura were truly dreadful, and his strength was definitely above average. Wouldn't others be sweating profusely? But for Suchi, if it weren't for the fact that there were many people outside, he would actually like to slap the other's face. As soon as Suchi left the place, he then saw in the distance many cyborgs, muscular and with an abnormal aura flowing out, all tattooed with the mark of the Black Emperor. Others already scurried away at the sight. Suchi, however, approached calmly, and each of them watched him intently. Then, they all shouted in unison, "Brother Su, hello?" Suchi showed a faint smile and extended his hand. "Keep it down a bit. The neighbors still need to sleep. Hehehe." Also, Suchi tossed a bunch of holographic virtual coins. Whoever got their hands on them considered it a transfer. "Take it and spend, brothers." The many gang members' faces lit up. "Thanks, Brother Su." To get by in a gang, two things are a must: strength and generosity, and Su Buxian greatly exemplified the latter, especially since his cybercoin income now reached millions a day. And he was never stingy. After all, even throwing money around could earn points, although not a lot, but the money would soon come back, so it was no big deal. After Suchi dispersed from these people, he changed his clothes, covered his head with a hat, and slowly headed towards the slums, taking many turns before entering a secluded building. He gently opened a door. Here stood nearly 40 figures. All of them were owners of big shops from various streets. At the same time, as they caught sight of Suchi, their eyes lit up. "Su, Chairman." Suchi glanced at them. "Have all the street chiefs from the Hustlers' Chamber of Commerce arrived?" Simon, that is, the burly man from before, scratched his head. "Two haven't arrived. They've probably been delayed on the road." Then docked them 2 little red flowers. Simon, although he had been around him for a few days, he was still not used to the other person's way of thinking. But that didn't really matter. After all, this young man had already changed the fortunes of all their merchants. That night when he said he wanted to discuss a big order, Simon hadn't taken him seriously and didn't trust a person from the Black Emperor. Unexpectedly, the other party had gone on to talk with shop owners from other streets and managed to bring out a large batch of goods, which instantly sold out and at an extremely high profit. It was unbelievable. Now, more and more merchants were gathering, production of the ordered goods was relentless, and they were selling without pause. Now so many had gathered to form the Hustlers' Chamber of Commerce led by Su Buxian. Simon's gaze grew fervent. Suchi glanced at him. "Your eyes are too dirty. Dock a flower for that too." "Simon, hell, even for that you dock it." "No, that's not right. What little red flowers, it really doesn't matter." Suchi looked to everyone and said softly, "All right, stop getting distracted. That guy selling the pleasure prosthetics, don't bring your stuff here. Turn that thing off, it's like a damn drilling machine." Next, I'll lay out the order requirements. In fact, Suchi didn't do much himself. He simply stirred up the war between the Black Emperor and Giles' crowd, so that both sides would be too busy fighting each other to pay attention to anything else, and he continued to fan the flames in the following days. After all, he couldn't let them rest. Then, Suchi used all the money he had amassed to secure a supply of goods. Then he made contact with Sha Shirley and other players who had gathered players to form camps, which indeed saved Suchi a lot of effort. Moreover, through the Super Dream Protocol, Suchi created a complete, unrestricted, risk-free purchasing and delivery quest system that connected everything. In short, once there was a demand for an order, each player would very quickly receive a mission on their wristwatch and then head straight to the shop's location, with an automatically generated route that would swiftly deliver the goods to the main city. Once the transaction was successful, the cyber coin for the order would instantly be deposited into the recipient's account. This is the cyber delivery service of the Hustlers Unlimited Company. While it wasn't anything novel, this system bypassed Night City's network system, undetectable, uninterceptable, and even the major companies were clueless about it, dramatically shortening the front-end and back-end processes. The profits, with the increase of merchants and customer base, were rising as the tide lifts all boats, with every day's figures breaking the previous day's records. Why do I feel like I've come here to start a business? After leaving the slums, Su Chi muttered to himself. He slightly moved his wrist, and a silver-white wristwatch slowly materialized. This was that Super Dream protocol, the reward he had gotten for delivering the Super Dream MR412 to that existence. Its function was to hack into networks and perform interference, simulation, deduction, and so on. Could be considered an incredibly skilled smart hacker, as bypassing Night City's system was far from simple. At that moment, someone sent Su Chi a message. I went for a health check today. The doctor didn't tell me the results, but my father looked very concerned. This was the purchaser of the Super Dream MR412, previously using the account Florence Grace. Su Chi had also been keeping in contact with the other party in recent days. In light of this, Su Chi decided to offer some comfort. He slowly typed a reply. Don't worry. Don't be too pessimistic. Maybe it's your father who has the health issue. The other party. Chapter 166. Thorough Purge. The other party fell into silence, unable to speak for a long time. It seemed they were really comforted, a single sentence warming her for the entire winter. A terminally ill young miss from Life Group, completely buffed up, Su Chi murmured to himself. After obtaining the Super Dream from the other party, within 2 days, Su Chi had turned Life Group upside down. Of course, it was Life Group that he was investigating. Life Group, one of Night City's top 3 business magnates, was founded by Sigong Chung, who controlled the research and development of prosthetics, having an amazing talent on the path where machinery and flesh converged, leading to its catastrophic growth until today. But such a giant was helpless against his daughter, Sigong Sun's illness. Normally, the prosthetic and the nerves would form a connection, exchanging data instantly, melding together as one. However, this also made the nervous system susceptible to influence, descending into madness, belligerence, and personality loss, eventually losing humanity, commonly known as cyber mental illness. As for Sigong Sun, she was afflicted with a terminal neurological disease. Although she hadn't installed any prosthetics, her nervous system was weakening day by day, and like a chronic poison, her body was also affected, with her functions declining. A year ago, she could still stand and walk, but now she could only sit in a wheelchair. Indeed, because of this, Sigong Chung restricted her from any mentally strenuous activities, always recuperating in the manner, aiming to alleviate her symptoms. Even so, her disease continued to devour her life force unrestrained. Sorry, my mother just came knocking at my door. I got startled and threw the Super Dream under the bed. Su Chi did not immediately respond to the message. In a dark alley, several transhumans slowly emerged from the shadows. They were members of Giles' crowd, apparently staking out to assassinate someone from the Black Emperor. After all, the 2 gangs had now completely torn their faces off, determined to fight to the death. Su Chi pretended not to notice and also checked the other party's message. The Super Dream got its corners banged up. Miss Sigong Sun actually talked quite a bit after obtaining Super Dream, even if trivial matters became part of the message. Although it's all monotonous daily routines in the manor, she never tired of it. After all, confined to a manor and suffering from a painful terminal illness, everything was consuming her limited life force. She probably just wanted to record these in Super Dream. What a sensible girl. Su Chi was moved by this. Then he gently coaxed her. obtaining vast amounts of internal information from Life Group. It seems to be no big deal. I can still chat, and messages are being sent successfully. Yay! Boom! Suddenly, a surge of energy from the dark cannon toward Su Qi abruptly attacked. He slightly shifted his body, dodging it, then grabbed another mutated transformed body with a long sword leaping out from behind the shadows. By the way, when you said you wanted to join Life Group, were you serious? That was his excuse at that time, and she helped plan and revealed a lot of insider information. Su Qi flipped his sword, the cold light flickering along the circuit lines, crackling past. The transformer's entire shoulder was severed, revealing the prosthetic wirings inside, and it screamed out in pain. After all, despite some attenuation, the deeper the wounds, the stronger the pain felt. Today, when I was having my body checked, I asked my father specifically for a list of interviewees, only to find out I don't even know your name. Black Emperor's men, die! Shouted a muscular man wielding a high-pressure electromagnetic tube, grating noise billowing as he advanced. Su Qi's expression was unchanged, and his body burst into action. The next moment, the muscular man stared blankly at his chest, a palm piercing through it, then retracted, his eyes whitening. Then he spasmodically collapsed. You couldn't have fallen asleep, could you? If so, I won't bother you anymore. Su Qi kicked away the three bodies on the ground, retrieved his long sword, and walked towards the pathway ahead, slowly sending out a question mark. Saying you went to sleep at 12. That's an insult to Night City. Besides, forget about joining Life Group. Why? After all, people strive for higher places. Su Qi paused. Right now, my identity is that of a respected gangster. Sigong soon widened her eyes. Where the hell is higher up, and what does it have to do with being respected? Her mood fluctuated, feeling an urge to punch the holographic interface. Logged off. Su Qi also closed the page, then accessed Sigong Soon's physical examination data through the Super Dream Protocol. This Super Dream Protocol, after linking to Night City's network, was also gradually growing, intelligently estimating various data, silently infiltrating some non-core areas. No wonder her father looks so distressed. His daughter is experiencing full body decay, powerless to help, and not much longer to live. The data showed all of Sigong Soon's abilities, all below a normal person, and further deteriorating. The Life Group line was pretty significant. The Hustler's Chamber of Commerce might quickly swallow the entire illegal land, but to grow bigger and take root in Night City without the support of a top giant, that would still be extremely difficult. After all, although it had only been 15 days, he had also planned for later. The Hustlers sect needs a chamber of commerce that could span across 10,000 realms. Of course, it might compete with the traveling merchant, but it's not a big problem. Then it's time to speed up the process. The Hustlers Chamber of Commerce had already included hundreds of shops across Giles Crowd's territory. Aside from initially negotiating in person, later it was mainly other shop owners under Simon's lead who covertly spread the word. After all, Su Qi had set up a reward for inviting new shops. For each shop pulled in, corresponding cybercoins would be earned. The more valuable the shop brought in, the more they earned. For buyers, it was the same. Su Qi had not restrained himself. Both users and merchants were continuously expanding, and the daily orders and turnovers had reached an astounding level. Hundreds of players naturally couldn't withstand such a growth in orders, so Su Qi recruited more runners through intermediary channels, this time targeting the poor, and similarly offered generous subsidies. 3 days then passed. Simon, worried, sick, and extremely anxious, burst through the door. It's bad. It's bad, President Su. Something big has happened. The Black Emperor and Giles Crowd have noticed something wrong. They've started to scale back their stance recently, and they're keeping a tight watch over the streets. They've started issuing prohibitions. Su Qi was calm, as if he had anticipated this. In these few days, he hadn't stirred the flames, and with the forces gradually building up, the Black Emperor and Giles Crowd, the two local dragons, had finally noticed something wrong, having eased up from the fight. Now our channels are restricted, and they are also scrutinizing the Hustlers' Chamber of Commerce closely. What should we do? Su Chi pondered and pointed to a machine next to him. Simple. Help me make a pancake. At a time like this, you're still eating pancakes. Simon's eyes widened. Wasn't this something significant? He exclaimed urgently. Both forces will soon understand our model, and after they do, I fear they will completely take it over. Su Chi slowly applied a layer of starch, calmly saying, "That's exactly what we want them to know." Simon couldn't understand, but Su Chi clicked his tongue lightly and said, "In any case, don't rush. Let the pancakes cook a bit longer." The fourth day, Simon came again, his expression even uglier than before. Those beasts. After they understood the profits involved, they ordered everyone to triple the protection fees. They took over all the channels and even demanded high fees. Su Chi calmly said, "Let them do it." He had already instructed Xia Shirley and many other players to hold their forces recently, and had also temporarily disconnected the system. Simon cursed in anger, yet he was powerless. Just when he saw a glimmer of hope, a good day ahead, they were pushed back to the old ways by this damn gang. And why at this time? Simon's eyes bulged. "President, you're still eating pancakes." Su Chi calmly reminded. "No. Today this is a hand-grabbed flatbread." Simon's eyes widened even more. "Does it make a difference? You're getting more and more impatient. Be careful about losing merit badges. And also, what's the use of being impatient?" Su Chi said calmly. "Do you think you can dare to resist?" "Why not?" Simon roared out these words. After he roared, he immediately regretted it. His eyes dimmed slightly, and he opened his mouth. "Sorry. Resist. How could they possibly resist? Facing two massive forces, on what basis could they resist?" He was too presumptuous. After witnessing Su Buxian's strong ability, he placed all hopes on him. But in this situation, there was nothing they could do. The fifth day, Simon arrived somewhat later than before, his body bearing injuries, his eyes also redder with anger. "It seems there's been a change today." Su Chi paused. "Many shops have united in opposition, but those bastards didn't care. They smashed all the opposing shops. Many of the poor were beaten back. The previously collected cyber coins were forcibly taken back. Damn it! Damn it! Those bastards simply aren't human." Su Chi paused again. "Normal. The tempers from both sides have flared up these past days. They naturally vent and displace their anger onto others. However, it still wasn't enough. A fire could stir up their anger, but in the face of a powerful deterrence, it was still lacking. It needed a bigger fire, one that would show them hope, the hope to change everything. Of course, the fruit was planted by Su Chi, and naturally he intended to harvest it. As for that bigger fire, they needed someone else to start it. Regarding who will be played for the fool, Su Chi looked towards the direction of Main City. Meanwhile, the Netherworld King had earlier made contact with the major elites, firmly securing his foothold in the enforcement department. He observed the incoming messages, his eyes now revealing a hint of murderous intent. It seems the chaos has already started? Quicker than expected. But everything is under control. It's time to start. The Netherworld King used his authority, submitting an application for the eradication of the illegal land. Within just half a day, he quickly received support from most of the elites. Because the elites discovered, recently a large batch of unlicensed products had flooded into Night City, with many citizens secretly tapping into mysterious channels, disrupting their markets, and the source was the illegal land. Nothing can be touched except their profits. An elite coldly said, "This is a good opportunity. By seizing this chance, completely wipe out Giles' crowd and the Black Emperor. And this place that only produces rubbish." The Netherworld King and his hundreds of players, along with the carefully transformed prosthetics, fully equipped handling squads, were ready for the eradication clash. And as they watched the place where the illegal land was located, next, It's time for the harvest. Chapter 167. Nancy. Bad luck. Black Emperor and Giles crowd gathered in a bar hall. Poker K and Adam Hammer, the two leaders, met. The rest of the respective followers stood on both sides of the bar, with even the high-ranking members numbering in the hundreds. The atmosphere between the two parties was unpleasant, as just a few days prior they had been mortal enemies now forced to talk due to circumstances. So many years, Main City has turned a blind eye to illegal land, and now they actually start a purge. Poker K's tone was somewhat hoarse. It seems like they're serious this time. Adam Hammer's eyes widened slightly, showing a hint of brutality. So what if they are serious? This is my territory, a place where numerous vicious criminals survive. Let them come? We'll kill as many as show up. Stupid. Fool. Poker K calmly said. In any case, we must cooperate, no more hiding. It wasn't the first time this had happened, but it had always been on a small scale. After all, illegal land didn't have much profit to offer, and it gathered a bunch of people whom Main City looked down upon. This allowed the two major forces to sit here, growing ever more enormous. Once cooperating, it would be a force that even Main City could feel threatened by. Of course, Adam Hammer's pupils flashed red. All weapons, combat prosthetics factories under my flag are working non-stop. These were originally to turn Giles' crowd into ash, but it seems that we'll have to wait now. Poker K indifferently said, the various active enhancement potions my side has produced have already filled the warehouses. Both were old foxes with vast territories in illegal land, thousands of people under their gangs, constantly watching each other's movements, guarding against each other. However, now they need to cooperate. It was necessary to show some of their cards, especially since this time Main City was going full force, even heavily publicizing in Night City, intent on using them to establish authority. That group of aristocrats was an even more miscellaneous bunch than them. But who's afraid of whom? Their large amount of prohibited enhancing potions along with numerous weapons and combat prosthetics would also be a very powerful force. Moreover, 100 or so people from the slums too. Adam Hammer spoke as if it was a minor issue. I commanded our people to implant self-destruction bombs in their bodies, to send them as cannon fodder when the time comes. Poker K swirled his wine glass. You're really cruel. ? Adam Hammer scoffed. You're saying I am? Don't think I don't know that in the past few days you've also been cracking down everywhere, capturing people. Poker K's eyes reflected in the red wine appeared particularly bloodshot. But I'm much gentler. Some potions have already been placed in their bodies. They'll become as monstrously strong as monsters. Of course, when they die, they will feel no pain due to the excitement from the potions. The two men, representing the great evil of illegal land, spoke cruelly as though they were merely discussing everyday matters. Listening to their conversation, the other gang members showed no discomfort, all revealing cold smiles. Su Chi stood inconspicuously among the high-ranking members, leaning against the wall observing it all. This is clearly a world where money can be made, but why does it feel more intense than some instances where monsters roam? However, the cards of both Black Emperor and Giles crowd had been shown. Combat prosthetics, high-energy weapons, and enhancing potions, abnormal power. This was the key foundation that had allowed them to control illegal land for many years, oppress countless people, and trouble Main City. Both parties had shown their fangs, and although the outcome was uncertain, damage was inevitable. Now, led by a player called Kill Thousands, numerous players must stand on the same front as Black Emperor and Giles crowd. And on Main City's part, that idiot called Netherworld King is also ready to come forth in a fierce manner. I seemingly only need to do one thing. It was the 10th day since all players had entered the instance. Tonight, 3 things happened. Firstly, led by Kill Thousands, many players officially made contact with the two big gangs. Not only that, but they also gathered many vicious criminals, accumulating quite a bit of strength and arms. He was very ambitious and cunning, emerging at the last moment. Although not comparable to the huge gangs, their power was still insignificant. But at this moment, neither Black Emperor nor Giles crowd could refuse. Secondly, a large number of combat personnel from Main City were already here to suppress bandits. advancing toward illegal land. The cleansing operation had begun. The Netherworld King and many other players were ready for the bloody harvest. Whether it was Main City or the gangs, no one cared about the existence of the lower layers of illegal land. Countless people were forced into this disaster. The third event. Sigong Chung of Life Group silently stood outside a hospital room, watching his daughter on the bed, her complexion extremely pale, fallen into a coma. Although she was connected to life support systems, it seemed unable to stop her life force from draining. Mrs. Sigong's tears couldn't stop flowing. Why did this happen? Just a few days ago she was fine, then suddenly deteriorated. Not suddenly. Sigong Chung slowly closed his eyes, his voice weary. A few days ago during the examination, the doctor said, "My daughter may not have many days left. But no matter what, just wait a bit longer, maybe. After seeing these adults, there might be other ways." Sigong Cheng's voice trembled. At this moment, his assistant's voice appeared from Sigong Cheng's wristwatch display. "Family head, someone in the hall, wants to see you. I don't want to meet anyone right now." Sigong Cheng sat exhausted next to his wife, whose eyes were red from crying. Whether it's group business or other meetings, cancel them all. Chapter 168. But there are no buts. Sigong Cheng now doesn't want to manage anything. Whoever it is, let him go. It's not. He, the assistant, on the verge of tears, said, "He has a knife at my throat." Click. The assistant's voice disappeared. Immediately after, a faint voice rang out. "Family head of Sigong, stand still. I'll be there shortly." Sigong Cheng's expression changed in shock, his reflexes sharp as he prepared to immediately access the hospital system to sound the alarm. But he found that the entire hospital system failed to respond. Then, he and his wife both turned towards the door to the hallway, where footsteps were slowly approaching. His wife looked terrified. "Who is it?" "I don't know, but it doesn't matter. You go hide and protect our daughter. I'll handle this." With a grim face, Sigong Cheng quickly locked the door and motioned for his wife to hide in the ward. Although he didn't know why the hospital's network had been blocked, he was determined to protect his wife and daughter no matter what. The next moment, bang! The door to the corridor was smashed through with a hammer. Sigong Cheng's face changed slightly, and he stepped back. A figure slowly walked in, and Sigong Cheng searched his entire memory, only to realize he had never seen this person before. "What do you want to do?" Sigong Cheng's palm revealed a gun, aiming at Su Qi with a very serious tone. Night City is not short of dangerous, mad people who consider their kind of elite their enemy. It seemed this person was one of them. "Don't be nervous." Su Qi handed over a business card. "Here is my business card. Selling sexy fake goods." Sigong Cheng opened his eyes wide as he looked at the pink business card. "Oh, sorry. I picked up the wrong one." It was normal to pick up the wrong card out of the many merchant cards he carried. Su Qi handed over another one. "I am the chairman of the Hustlers' Chamber of Commerce, here to negotiate a deal with you." Sigong Cheng quietly looked at the crudely hand-drawn logo on the card, his gaze wary as he took it. "The Hustlers, a chamber of commerce I've never heard of," he said calmly, while his fingertips subtly moved, continuously trying to sound the alarm. Understandable, since it was only established recently. Su Qi glanced at Sigong Cheng. "Stop trying to send out an alarm. This hospital has been blocked for at least about 10 minutes. He smiled gently. "So screaming your head off is useless. How much money do you want? I can give it to you." After failing in his attempts, Sigong Cheng chose to compromise and stabilize the other party, especially since his wife and daughter were in the ward behind him. "You are mistaken, Mr. Sigong." Su Qi spoke softly. "I am a respectable person, not a robber. Have you ever seen such a polite robber?" Sigong Cheng looked at the door smashed open by a hammer and fell silent. "You call this polite?" he said sternly. "What do you want?" "My business will soon be established in illegal land, but I need your support." "Illegal land? Wasn't that place under the rule of Black Emperor and Giles Crowd? When did the Hustlers' Chamber of Commerce pop up? And since illegal land had been closed due to the crackdown, how could he still come out? However, Sigong Chung did not hesitate. I can support you. No matter the conditions, he would first agree to buy time. Once the 10 minutes passed, he believed the response team would also arrive quickly. Don't be so quick to agree. It's not a small matter, Su Chi said calmly. Besides, I will also offer you conditions that will make you satisfied. Sigong Chung was slightly taken aback. The other party had barged in so boldly he had thought they were going to do something, but now they were actually negotiating terms. He said in a deep voice, such as, no matter what the conditions were, Sigong Chung was ready to negotiate with the other person. Su Chi tapped the thick glass of the ward. For instance, allowing your daughter to live a little longer. Sigong Cheng's expression froze, slightly stunned. At this moment, Mrs. Sigong held her daughter tightly, gaze trembling as she looked through the glass of the ward. She couldn't hear what the two were discussing, but seeing her husband's stunned look and then his silence, it seemed something had happened, causing him to be troubled. Then, after 5 seconds, the criminal spoke again, and Sigong Chung made up his mind, slowly walking toward the door to open it. What are you going to do? Mrs. Sigong's gaze was wary as she stared at Su Chi intently. Obviously, to save your daughter, Mrs. Florence Grace. The wife was taken aback. How did the other person know her online ID? But now was not the time to worry about that. She looked towards her husband. Sigong Chung shook his head. Let him try. He said if it's useless, he will leave immediately. He had no choice. The conditions proposed by the other party left no room for refusal. Even if there was just a sliver of hope, he wanted to grasp it. Concrete. Su Chi slowly extended his hand, under their skeptical gazes, and materialized a feather. After his successful job transfer, the ancient god's heart had become part of his body. The phoenix feather's traits hadn't fully merged yet, but its strength was still present. With his spiritual eyes' concrete ability under the right environment, logic, degree of belief from the other party, and difference in spiritual power, he managed to materialize it as a tool. The effect was discounted, but it could still trigger the power within. Especially since these last few days weren't spent in vain chatting with her, periodically telling her some phoenix legends, stories of the phoenix rebirth, making her subconsciously desire something. How wonderful it would be if such a feather could cure her illness. Every person lying on a sickbed has imagined such a thing, longing for a miracle to happen. Chapter 169. What is this? Both were somewhat shocked. As long as you absorb it, her body will also receive the healing effect. But of course I should remind you, this can only restore her lost life force. It won't work for her condition. Su Chi said gently. Every factor could impact the strength. If one were to claim the existence of something and make everyone in the world believe in it, it might actually be possible to materialize it. Of course, right now the concrete ability could only exist for a very short time and was far from the level of creating something from nothing, of creating all things. It could only be said perhaps the fame was insufficient. Understood. Sigong Chung nodded with a trembling voice, having researched restorative potions themselves for a while, and continuously used them to prolong their daughter's life. However, after excessive use, she developed a strong resistance to the medicine, and it soon lost its effect. They hadn't expected the other party to have other methods. Well then, I must be impolite. The next moment, Sigong Chung watched silently as Su Chi inserted the feather into Sigong Sun's nostril. This way, the absorption is better, faster. Damn it, couldn't you just place it in her mouth? He felt like he was crazy to believe this guy. But soon after, the feather slowly vanished, the strength merging inside. The previously comatose Sigong Sun's body shuddered slightly, her pale complexion visibly recovering. And then, Achie! Sigong Sun sneezed heavily and murmured sleepily. Why does my nose itch so much? Sigong Chung and Florence Grace's eyes trembled. Is it really effective? Su Chi didn't look at the fading feather. He had seen Sigong Sun's medical reports, but those were just cold data. Now, with her right in front of him, he was watching her vitals. Great, it was all for naught. Her condition could only be delayed, not completely healed. Sigong Sun slowly opened her eyes, seeing Su Qi and her parents, her expression a bit confused. Who are you? You're awake? Congratulations. Su Qi smiled. Your bothersome hemorrhoids have been cut away. The two beside her were stunned. Sigong Sun, still groggy, stuttered, I don't have hemorrhoids. Su Qi pondered. Sitting for long stretches every day and not getting hemorrhoids, that's not scientific. Sigong Cheng's eyelids twitched. What the hell are you telling my daughter? Cough, cough. He coughed. Let's talk outside. Su Qi paused. Okay. Sigong Sun watched dazedly as her mother, with red-rimmed eyes, hurried over. What happened? Isn't that man a doctor? It's complicated. Sigong Cheng also left the sick room, looking at him earnestly. Anyway, thank you for stepping in. I'm incredibly grateful, and I will do my utmost to meet all your conditions. Then, would you give me half the assets of Life Group? Sigong Cheng fell silent, hesitating for a moment, then gritting his teeth. If you can completely cure my daughter. Su Qi paused, surprised that the other party would really agree. However, there was no way. Although the power of the undying bird differed from potions, being a trait that restored life force without developing resistance, it couldn't be used to heal diseases. Forget it. The Hustler's Chamber of Commerce is no worse than your Life Group. Sigong Cheng. That statement also indicated that he was also powerless regarding his daughter's illness. He was silent for a while, pondering the condition Su Qi had proposed earlier seriously, then spoke. You propose to support the Hustler's Chamber of Commerce, and I will certainly oblige, but forgive my bluntness. Illegal land is currently undergoing a purge operation. If successful, it'll become a district of Main City, and the major powers will devour this place. And if it fails, the Black Emperor and Giles crowd will not tolerate a third-party power taking root. In Main City, I can support you with all my capabilities, but in illegal land, it's very difficult. Su Qi shook his head lightly. Not necessary, after all. Neither of the scenarios you mentioned will occur. Sigong Cheng was taken aback. Because this place should be decided by the majority. Boom, boom, boom. Both sides were engaged in intense combat, the so-called purge nothing more than reckless slaughter. Large numbers of people caught in the crossfire, forcibly dragged into the streets as cannon fodder. Machinery mingled with flesh. Despair and resentfulness were howling. Simon, with bloodshot eyes, stared dead at the distant rumbles and gun smoke. Countless people were fighting, the tumult of battle destroying everything. The slums were full of refugees, packed, with blood and ash covering them. Meanwhile, in other places, many more refugees were captured, continuously sent off as human cannon fodder. The purge troops from Main City, because of their strategy and the cruel tactics of both factions, executed all the fleeing people on sight without any mercy. The battle had reached a fever pitch, both sides throwing themselves into the fray madly. Damn it! Damn it! Someone roared, their body starting to tremble. We just want to survive. Do we have to be purged too? Why? Just because we have no money, no power. Do we deserve to be treated like trash? They couldn't leave. Illegal land was sealed off by Main City. This place would become a slaughterhouse. No one able to escape. Anger, resentfulness, despair, and powerlessness. They had nothing. No way to resist, no way to protect themselves. And right now, Su Qi was sitting silently on the roof of an old building, watching them. Clearly, the people's resentfulness and anger had reached a boiling point. If weapons had been provided earlier, they probably would have already risen up in resistance. Chapter 170. However, Su Qi didn't choose to do that. Going up too early would just lead to more of their people dying, since most were just the poor. Blood could be shed, but casualties should be minimized if possible, because the intimidation left by the wolf, jackal, tiger, and leopard devouring each other was by no means simple. Still, leading that vicious and ferocious crowd of gamblers and abnormalities is easier. Su Qi muttered to himself. Just kill, 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 and it's all over. And nobody really has any moral bottom line. Su Qi gazed into the distance. It seems about time. Both sides would surge once, weaken twice, and exhaust thrice. Their exhaustion would be my gain. It was time to act. Timing was also crucial. There could be no giving them a chance to breathe. And in the next moment, someone in the crowd suddenly shuddered. The watch on their wrist flickered faintly, and a holographic panel slowly emerged. This is, he murmured, that Aaron's system. It wasn't just him. All who had been involved before, except for the players, the panel appeared to everyone. Ladies and gentlemen. Someone heard the voice, looked up blankly, and saw Su Qi standing above the old buildings of the slums. Who is this? Facing the gaze of countless people, Su Qi said lightly, in 2 minutes, 5 container trucks will arrive here. Their eyes red with killing intent, ready to reach into the slums. In 10 minutes, the aftermath of an explosion will affect this area, with a large number of buildings collapsing. In half an hour, the winner between the two sides should be decided. Everyone listened blankly to Su Qi's words, trembling. And then, what? There is no then. Regardless of who shows up here. Su Qi paused for a moment, looking calmly at the crowd. You can't bear it. The Black Emperor and Giles crowd have already prepared a new round of forced plans to deal with the main city's next attack. While the main city's plan for cleansing the illegal land targets everyone, your cornered living situation, everything that's divided here, will all vanish into thin air. Everything will result in different outcomes, but only your roles won't change, still just the lowest existence in the illegal land. The crowd's expressions trembled with unwillingness, despair, and anger swirling within. No, I refuse to accept this ending. Why is it always us who suffer? Damn this cleansing, damn Night City. Even if I have to die, I'm taking them down with me. Su Qi said, Good, that's the spirit. He clapped his hands. There's a saying that dignity is only above the edge of the sword, truth only within the range of the cannon. Are you here to wait for death, or? Gradually, the system displayed a vast quantity of nearby weapon stocks, potion stocks, and combat prosthetic stocks. The sheer number left them dumbstruck. At the same time nearby, Simon driving a large truck, along with all members of the Hustlers' Chamber of Commerce, appeared, each holding various weapons. Su Qi softly said, Follow me, to cleanse all oppression. At the same time, a man stood in front of a crystal mirror, adjusting his tie. He slicked his hair until it gleamed. He put on his diamond watch. Nancy looked at his reflection in the mirror and revealed a satisfied smile. Today, I still look handsome. It's time to head out. The female assistant beside him asked, Boss Nancy, are you confident? Are you looking down on someone? Nancy calmly said, although representatives from several famed forces, higher-ups, and even the Spirit Prince's heir from various worlds will be at this auction. They've chosen to hold it in Night City. He smiled confidently. Night City? My fame here is quite high. One could say it's my second home ground. Such talk. The assistant mused to herself. Though I remember, boss, your primary home ground. Last time wasn't it taken by that Su Buxian? Shut up. Nancy coughed. Don't bring up that incident. He paused. And don't mention that name. He grumbled. Bad luck. Chapter 171. I can persuade. At this moment, the illegal land was in total chaos. The so-called cleansing operation was actually intertwined with many goals. Numerous emergency handling squads were focusing intently on the Black Emperor and Giles crowd. Over the years, because the main city had been continually exploiting them, a massive number of people had been forced to live in the illegal land and the area continued to expand. The nobles could no longer sit idly by. What they called cleansing was actually turning everything here into a part of them. And the objective of the players led by the Netherworld King was even clearer. They were fighting against the camp of those who killed from 1,000 miles away. It was still the first time that there had been large-scale combat between players. Dangerous, violent, mixed, filled with various skill, with everyone giving it their all. Simon, as the second in command, immediately began to act. All members, follow the chairman's strategy for combat in the system. Code squads. Errand system route marking. After clarifying the danger levels, have each member personally lead others in combat. To be able to become a merchant in the illegal land also took a special capability. After all, to secure a place to survive without committing crimes or felonies here required very specific survival skills. Chairman, any other instructions? Su Chi hesitated for a moment, then replied in the system. There are. Does the name member sound a bit lacking in dominance? Somewhat unfitting for everyone's current enthusiastic atmosphere. Simon, is now really the time to be picking names? Su Chi left this matter to Simon and others. Possessing the errand system to coordinate combat, they had a huge information advantage that allowed them to quickly have everyone avoid dangers, exchange information swiftly, and engage in fast-paced combat. However, even so, Su Chi estimated that quite a number of people would bleed to death. This was nearly a slaughter among 10,000 people, a genuine war. He prioritized not command but the elimination of those with high-level combat power. Su Chi's body slowly surged with spiritual energy. The ancient god's heart activated, robust strength flowing through his body, and his attribute panel began to change. Strength, 670. Movement technique, 580. Physical strength, 1100. Spiritual power, 6,250. He had realized something after leaving the last instance. It seemed there was an issue with his bonuses. Normally, every person who changed profession, upon stepping into a sequence, would receive different bonuses to different attributes due to the differing paths of the sequence. For example, for a warrior type, the main bonuses would be physical strength and strength. For an assassin type, it would mainly be movement technique. And for the rarest spiritual type, it would be more extreme, with all bonuses focused on the spiritual attribute. And he had bonuses on every attribute, all evenly distributed, completely unlike other professions. Especially spiritual power, once the level cap was removed, combined with the basic attributes of the spiritual eyes being tripled in bonus points, the spiritual power attribute would continually glitch and raise, turning into a far-leading terrifying value. However, attributes unless significantly ahead are not the only indication of combat power differences, as there are also various skills, spiritual energy, and traits to consider. So, normally they are divided according to sequence level. Even though there are strong and weak ones, each sequence clearly has a large difference. Using it to judge the strength of the opponent was the most direct method. In the present illegal land, the faction members and handling squads, using prosthetics and a mass of weapons along with potions, had burst strengths not to be underestimated. And above that were the high-level members of the factions, whose individual combat power was extremely prominent, charging forward under explosions to kill, even more fiercely. As for the bosses of both factions, they were currently engaged in fierce bombardment with 5 super cyborg soldiers. EMT Adam Hammer, with a body made of carefully crafted combat prosthetics combined with the abnormal strength in his body, burst forth just like his name implies. Wherever he went was smashed by his hammer, creating an enormous booming sound and leaving ripples and cracks from the impacts. Poker K relied not on prosthetics but on potions and weapons, rapidly running through the battlefield, and alongside him emerged Giles Crowd's ace, Bonebreaker Frost. This guy, covered in sharp serrations, the sound of friction causing screeches. Kill, kill, kill. Nearby were also numerous high-level combat personnel from the factions, all surrounding the 5 EMT soldiers. The 5 EMT soldiers wore expressions cold as ice, their eyes devoid of any emotion. Even their expressions never changed, purely designed as super soldiers that completely obeyed the commands of the elites. They had a complete set of combat systems with all-around combat capabilities, composite metal with tenacious exteriors, high-energy core power furnaces, etc. When they burst forth, they too would send out ripples through the air. The surrounding high-level members wanted to step into the slaughter, looking for opportunities, but were either knocked away or crushed. F***CK. Are these the monsters created by the main city? There's no way they can be matched. What terrifying strength. Shit. They're all a bunch of wastes. Adam Hammer's voice was incredibly heavy, clenching his teeth as he stared intently at those 5 super soldiers. He could handle one, but against 5 EMT super cyborg soldiers with strength almost akin to his own, he had no chance. These were simply man-made monsters. He had been battling and struggling in the sea for over a decade, accumulating a lot of technology and active potions, turning himself into a powerful entity, only for the main city to replicate and manufacture them so simply. What damn EMT? The place I struggled for so many years. Die for me. Adam Hammer roared lowly, his body bursting up from its original place. The 10-meter distance instantly closed, his massive body clutching the giant hammer. With great thrusting power, he burst towards an EMT soldier to smash him. Chapter 172. Frost. Let's fight them. Poker K's face darkened, and he moved simultaneously with Bone Breaker, unleashing a burst of firepower and a screeching deadly edge. Around him, more than 10 advanced members also roared and charged into battle. The 5 EMTs calmly watched everything unfold. They were emotionless, their central nerves controlled by chips, possessing computer-level combat and analytical abilities. Weak state detected. Significant energy fluctuation of a desperate gamble. Evade recommended. The EMT fighters quickly made a unanimous judgment, but they failed to escape, because the rest drank their last potion in anger. Their circuits burst through their veins, and their speed and strength erupted once more. The prosthetics now mingled with abnormal forces. Even if it means perishing with you, we'll create an opportunity for the boss. D. The expression of the 5 EMTs did not change, even as their vision constantly flashed with dangerous and deadly warnings. Activate Protection Defense Plan. The next moment, boom, boom, boom. All the desperate attacks erupted at this moment, centered on the EMT fighters. Massive amounts of energy burst out like light balls, devouring everyone. Terrifying fluctuations kicked up a tremendous amount of dust. Gradually, more than 10 seconds passed. The smoke and dust began to clear. ZZZZZZ. 4 of the 5 EMTs' bodies were left in tatters, the dangerous energy clearly burning everything inside. Their complex structures filled with the imminent threat of explosion. Despite being completely remodeled, their flesh still existed, continuously dripping blood. But they remained expressionless, using their bodies to firmly protect someone inside. Defense complete. The rest will be handled by EMT-24. Their voices trailed off in a whisper, growing softer. Then with a loud thud they fell to the ground, silent. Freaks damn, all freaks. Poker K, covered in blood, watched the scene, his expression trembling. Adam Hammer was also broken and shattered, staring intently at the EMT. These emotionless freaks in such a situation, 4 of them did not hesitate to choose sacrifice. Most importantly, without a trace of emotion. This is the artificial monster of Night City. Such a terrifying horror. The last standing EMT warrior wobbled to his feet, and he calmly said, "Now starting to neutralize all threats on the field. We're done. Completely done." Poker K collapsed on the ground, unable to move even an inch. Adam Hammer and Bone Breaker were also crippled, able to move, but unable to stand. "I can't accept this, I just can't." Adam Hammer's voice was hoarse, clutching his fist, feeling indignant. The EMT already extended its palm, a laser cannon emerging within it, constantly condensing, and then suddenly, the EMT's body shuddered, its eye sockets flickering with red light, turning its palm towards a building. Boom! The explosion directly overturned the building. Thick smoke and dust rolled. They stared dumbfounded at this scene. They didn't understand why the EMT did this. Did it short-circuit in the energy burst just now? The next moment, Adam Hammer's pupils shrank. With some blood on his face, he stared at him. Su Buxian. Su Chi's figure slowly appeared atop the ruins. "I actually wanted to wait a bit longer. didn't expect to be discovered. A bit awkward. He smiled and said, "Two bosses. Nice to see you unharmed." "You," Adam Hammer uttered, his tone heavy and slightly hoarse, "are a traitor?" From the other's disappearance for so long, completely unreachable, until now revealing himself, all of this was enough to judge. "No." Su Chi paused. "I am Peace Messenger." At that moment, the EMT exploded once more without a moment's pause, continuing the attack. The terrifying burst and Adam Hammer's prime were no different. Here to break up the fight. The next moment, Su Chi disappeared from the spot, raised his hand to launch Artificial Team's counterattack. After a successful judgment, the EMT convulsed. Its circuits malfunctioned, its eye-pane constantly flashing red warnings. Warning, circuit malfunction, emergency recovery in progress. Although the skill was judged successful, its effect on this composite monster was limited. It had several restart programs inside, able to quickly eliminate faults and recover. But Su Chi didn't give it that chance. His pulse, in combat status, randomly added new attributes. Now, it simply said two words: repulsion. Pulse contained random attributes, not just ordinary elements like wind, fire, thunder, the five elements, etc. It also seemed to include various abnormalities. During previous battles, it was even seen that attributes like thread and rubber allowed him to wield silver threads to cut and control enemies, or let his body stretch and pull like rubber. But indeed, the random attributes each had their strength. If some were truly useless, he could choose to ignore them. Repulsion. Still not quite used to it. Really thought I was omnipotent. At this moment, the power Su Chi contained gathered at the center. The strong repulsion allowed him to burst forth at a terrifying speed, and the energy blasted out by the EMT was deflected under the influence of repulsion. Su Chi, without hesitation, pulled out a giant hammer and gathered his strength. Spiritual repulsion and the terrifying force in his hands converged, and he slammed it down hard. Boom! The EMT, yet to be hit by the giant hammer, vibrated throughout its body, then struck with a penetrating force. His entire body cracked open under the high explosive combined strike. Chapter 173. The screeching sounds kept piercing the air. Just with that one strike, the EMT collapsed onto the dented ground under their astonished gazes. "Well, that repulsion is pretty strong," Su Chi breathed out lightly. Self-destruction. Self-destruction. The EMTs had no thoughts of their own, their consciousness completely suppressed by the chip, and they still made their final counterattack. And the next moment, defense. Su Chi stretched out his hand, and repulsion once again encircled him, intercepting all explosive fluctuations like forming a wall of air, instead flipping two nearby people over. Very powerful. But at the same time, it consumed a lot. Su Chi's spiritual energy was also rapidly decreasing. Adam Hammer and Poker K were on the ground, silently watching as Su Chi slowly walked toward them from the center of the blasted scene. They knew it was their turn now. "It seems." Poker took out a cigar but found no fire. "So this is your way of intervening. Let's see if it has dissuaded anyone," Su Chi said, pulling a lighter from his pocket and tossing it to him. "Not bad, you managed to do it." But Adam Hammer didn't move, just silently watching Su Chi, his voice cold. "But can you dissuade the thousands still fighting? Can you dissuade those disgusting elites? Can you dissuade the cruel rules of Night City?" Su Chi sat down on the steps. "Both of you big shots. Going to give a good speech now that death is near." Poker K, covered in blood, with a big hole in his chest, shakily smoked his cigar, coughed softly, exhaled a puff of smoke, squinting his eyes. "Just telling you the facts. To stand firm in Night City, you must follow the rules and be more ruthless than everyone else. But this illegal land is just another brutal cage. You see it that clearly? Give me a hit too," Adam Hammer said softly. "Tsh, I'd only give it to you now." Poker K, trembling, passed the cigar along. Adam Hammer's arms had both blown off, so he couldn't catch it. "You too, so maimed," Still wanting to kiss indirectly, Su Qi shook his head. Let me do it. Su Qi took the cigar, putting it in Adam Hammer's mouth. Adam Hammer felt the searing heat in his mouth. He silently stared at Su Qi. You put it in backwards. No wonder I said the smoke seems to be coming from inside. Adam Hammer took a deep puff of the repositioned cigar, closed his eyes, his tone gradually calming. In Night City, an individual's power is ultimately flimsy, because I understand this. I know no matter how strong I become, or how perfectly modified, I'll eventually die here, so I established Black Emperor, and have been here for decades. Cruelty, slaughter, intimidation, that's everything needed to survive. But now it's also coming to an end. A few words from the elites are enough to destroy. The blood from Poker K flowed more heavily. His lips dried and pale, feeling the draining life force, silently raising his head and staring at the sky. No matter what you do next, you can't do better than us. Su Qi smiled calmly. Just dog eat dog, spoken so bravely? Also, can't do better than you? Whom are you insulting? He gently crushed the sparks from the cigar. There's a saying, a single spark can start a prairie fire. The power you underestimate will eventually completely submerge yourselves. In their shocked pupils, the whole sky's black curtain reflected. Then a faint starfire appeared, gradually magnifying. It was a fire dragon composed of flames, roaring as it approached furiously with its flames from afar. At the same time, numerous merchants followed by countless poor stormed in their wake. They were bursting, roaring. Be it gang members or squads from the main city, all were retreating in disarray. Roars came from all directions, as if to shatter the skies. Both were trembling as they watched these poor merchants, having never seen such a scene before. All enemies were being purged. The crowd was unstoppable. Finally, a dense crowd step by step surrounded the battlefield. Various unreturned combat prosthetics echoed. The air filled with unburned smells, and weapons overheated, still smoking, with everyone from the flickering red lights of their prosthetic eyes all watching the scene before them, staring at the two terrifying gang leaders who oppressed them. But no one spoke. Turns out, Poker K, with his last energy rasping in his throat like a sigh, like an epiphany. It's like this. Adam Hammer also pale, but his eyes trembled, although he could no longer speak. Su Qi looked at them. Can only say, in the next life, make sure to modify well and strive to be reborn. The two at the brink of death, unclear what emotions they harbored, yet perhaps didn't have time to say, gradually lost their final life forces. The two huge forces ruling this land, tonight, obliterated. Chapter 174. The master of this place is surnamed Su. The fire dragon gradually dissipated in the distance, until the last bit of starfire drifted over, fading away into Su Qi's hands. The densely packed crowd around watched this scene with excitement, agitation, and even reverence. They felt indignant and angry, wanting to rebel, yet felt powerless at that moment. The man before them had provided weapons, a plan, and a glimmer of hope they could see. Along this path, there had been a plethora of information from the system and strategic support, and now they seemed to have achieved their goal. Chairman, Simon came over, his body sturdy and covered in blood. He had been prepared to lead the rebellion, having already been equipped with various combat prosthetics, determined to be at the forefront of the fight the day before. We have completed the cleanup along this route, and we've cleared many enemies. There are also many cleanup squads that have fled out of illegal land, but according to your instructions, we didn't pursue them. Simon spoke with a heavy tone. Although he was originally just a merchant of prosthetics, starting from humble beginnings, after following Su Qi, he demonstrated extraordinary abilities in coordination, communication, and planning. During the time Su Qi established the Chamber of Commerce, Simon mostly managed it hands-off, with much of the management being carried out by him. And in battle, he displayed the ferocity that had been suppressed for many years. What shall we do next, Chairman? We are ready for anything. The surrounding people also shouted, raising their weapon-wielding hands even higher. Su Chi looked at the fiercely spirited crowd and smiled. What's up? You're all shouting so loudly. Are you planning to attack Night City? As soon as he said this, the crowd's momentum fell, and they muttered to themselves, this? Facing Giles' crowd and the Black Emperor, their hearts had been stirred to rebel, but upon hearing Night City, those few words still struck them like a hammer, pressing down on their recently agitated hearts. After all, that was a truly colossal force. How could they possibly contend with it? Their blood had been boiling from the rampage against gang members and enemy cleanup squads along the way, but at this moment it cooled down. Next, we will divide into teams by region to eliminate stragglers and those in uniform, and all lethal weapons will be collected after tonight, Su Chi said softly. The crowd was stunned for a moment. But what if Main City sends people to clean up again? We are considered a place of sin. They definitely won't let it go. Simon also understood this point very well. With the two big forces of illegal land gone, they could only become the next main force. Therefore, his expression had always been gravely serious, even upon seeing two former overlords fall, never revealing any hint of relief. Chairman, I know our strength is like an ant trying to shake a tree, but anymore. Su Chi said. They are cleaning up the Black Emperor and Giles' crowd of illegal land. What does that have to do with us? The Hustlers' Chamber of Commerce. You all killed the remnants. What does that have to do with Main City? Simon was stunned again. Su Chi patted him on the shoulder. Starting today, the name Illegal Land will be completely erased. We are a formal chamber of commerce, a completely legitimate and legal commercial base independent of Night City. Don't get it wrong. Simon's pupils trembled slightly, looking at Su Chi in shock. Chairman, is this the chairman's plan? But Simon came back to his senses hesitantly. They would never be recognized by Main City. Those elites definitely did not want to see them standing here. If they were to follow Main City's rules, they would also eventually become toys for the elites, living a breathless life once again. Stop with the buts. Go and get to work. Besides, Su Chi looked at the bodies of Adam Hammer and Poker K. Treat these two men with respect. The heads of the two factions were also products of illegal land, indeed, products created by twisted rules that always resulted in a presence that stood cruelly above the masses. By the way, don't forget to strip off all those EMT equipment. This stuff was incredibly expensive, and the entire Main City could only dispatch 5 of these valuable commodities. Understood. What followed? Su Chi gazed towards the distant sky cone. There was another area where the battle had not stopped. Players fought and slaughtered one another in this part, an area that Su Chi specifically demarcated, instructing everyone to stay away from it according to the system's guidance, as the players fighting was irrelevant to them. Moreover, even if a player died, they could be revived through points, generating no real profit. After all, their combined money didn't amount to the daily turnover of the running errand system, so why bother? What remains are the players. Their end has not yet arrived. Although the situation here was over, Netherworld King must not have receded yet. Their goal was to seize other players' cyber coins. A bunch of common folk. Su Chi looked at the long string of zeros on his watch account, shaking his head. I don't see what there is to fight over. Rainier Vale's expression was gloomy, staring intently at the other players equipped with excellent gear, some even fitted with prosthetics, an advantage from the Main City faction. Choose, young man, death or handing over all your cyber coins, said the young man, dressed in the cleanup department's combat uniform, with a smile. Look at your teammates. He pointed at Fatty and his 2 companions lying powerless in the distance. They've been very cooperative, transferring all their cyber coins to us. We keep our promises. Once we get the money, we'll let you all go, leave this place. Rainier Vale's expression changed, not replying immediately. Chapter 175. Killed players would have points deducted. and reaching 0 would result in direct elimination from the ranking battle, while the opponent could plunder more than half of their cyber coins. Thus, the situation had arisen where betting all one's cyber coins on the chance to survive was the move to make. After all, as long as one wasn't eliminated, there was still an opportunity. Still undecided? The young man laughed. Why bother? When you were busy making money, we had already been preparing everything for today. Whether it's combat prosthetics, weapons, or support from the main city, we can press you down. Rainier Vale clenched his teeth. He and his faction had quickly realized this after the fight. The enemy had come prepared, hence they were at a continuous disadvantage. No choice. He sighed deeply in his heart. It had to be this way. Sometimes, picking the right side is more important than anything else, the young man said, watching Rainier Vale display his panel with a faint smile. He was about to raise his hand to receive. Suddenly, the young man's expression changed, glancing at his wristwatch, which popped up a message from the main city processing department headquarters. All processing squads immediately cease operations and leave the illegal land. What's going on? Why the retreat? No. Retreat my ass, the players wouldn't care about this order. Just then, a great mass of footsteps rang out, a multitude of red glowing prosthetic eyes, the dark muzzles of guns, and all shapes and sizes of external combat prosthetics kept appearing nearby. All Night City Processing Department personnel, you are illegally invading the Hustlers' commercial base. You will now be purged. The young man and the uniformed players around him shivered all over, and the next moment, their heads were blasted by electric propulsion sniper rifles. At the same time, the cyber coins they had plundered fell in the form of holographic data. The crowd looked over. Even Rainier Vale couldn't help but feel a chill. Not to mention the 3 members of Fatty's team. We're on your side. And we saw each other when we were transporting goods earlier. Fatty's 3 members raised their hands hurriedly. Simon looked at these people and waved his hand. We know. Where's your main battlefield? Point us in the right direction. Now, all uniformed personnel had to be purged, and these people couldn't escape either. Rainier Vale hesitated, then pointed in a direction. The main battlefield is over there. However, top players like Killer 1000 Miles and Netherworld King hadn't joined the group battle. They needed to exert their full strength, and too many people fighting could cause certain interferences. They had even deliberately kept their distance, not knowing the current situation. Good. The chairman has ordered us to fight quickly. Let's go. Simon led the group onwards. Their dense and heavy footsteps left the others somewhat dazed. What exactly had happened, and why were a group of former merchants and poor people fighting, and who was the chairman? Rainier Vale sighed softly. I don't get it, I really don't. At this moment. Kill! Killer 1000 Miles charged through the streets extremely fast, his fighting accompanied by roars. He threw beads from his hands, which then exploded in a chain of blasts. Boom, boom, boom. But the explosive force was blocked by the Netherworld King in front of him. Killer 1000 Miles' eyes were sharp as he attempted to close in. Don't even think about it. Get lost. Ripples surged out from Netherworld King as the center. Not any physical waves, but pollutants bursting out. His current sequence was not strong enough to leverage many traits, and spiritual power skills had their usage and energy consumption limitations. But if he could obtain a powerful pollutant with a spiritual power impact, he could use the spiritual pollution power on it to exchange blood in battle with others. That was the advantage of the hidden conversion to a profession with spiritual power. And of course, these resources were not collected by him but were supported by the club forces above. After all, any profession related to spiritual classes held a T1 level in the sequence of Abyssal Paradise and was sure to be cultivated heavily. Moreover, facing the increasing frequency of upcoming polluted worlds, the spiritual attribute was key. Other professions were not necessarily excluded. They shone in the regular world, but for pollution and abyss-type situations, they had to pay much more, such as a vast amount of spiritual energy and rare tools, equipment. But these were ultimately external objects. Like Killer 1000 Miles at this moment, his spiritual energy was at rock bottom. The Buddha bead ancient relic on the back of his hand was dimming, and the protective layer enveloping his body was continually weakening. The next moment, he couldn't hold on anymore. The defense formed by spiritual energy developed a clearly visible crack. Damn it! The pupils of Killer Miles contracted. Great opportunity! Netherworld King raised his hand, and the ancient relic on his forehead flickered. Stop right there! The cold light burst forth from Netherworld King's pupils, and spiritual power erupted along with his spiritual energy, triggering his traits, which directly produced a stopping effect. Killer Miles' body was affected. He actually got forcefully controlled and halted, unable to move. All the sequence traits are like superpowers, and they can often be used to develop many other applications. This is bad. The pupils of Killer Miles contracted again. He was not some inexperienced ordinary player, well-versed in various combat methods, and he also understood that once designated by spiritual power traits, it would be extremely troublesome. All things like Illusion Realm, Control, Impact, Illusion Burst, and so on were extremely dangerous. Some could be escaped by biting the tongue to produce the stimulus of pain. But now his whole body seemed to be paralyzed, and he couldn't move a muscle, let alone bite his tongue. I'm right here. Netherworld King's pupils gleamed with a sinister light. My power is unstoppable. He was about to strike Killer Miles and directly kill him. Without spiritual energy protection, his body would be as fragile as paper should he sustain fatal damage. Just then, Killer Miles' gaze suddenly quivered slightly as he looked towards Netherworld King. Netherworld King stood frozen in place, his entire pupils diffused, staring vacantly into the distance. What's happening? Did he fall into an illusion? Killer Miles' expression was one of shock. Netherworld King, who held a hidden spiritual profession, was actually controlled by someone else. And the next moment, thump! Netherworld King suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. His whole body showed numerous traces, and he was bleeding profusely. Killer Miles' restraints disappeared as well. But Netherworld King couldn't concern himself with these. Instead, his gaze trembled with fear and wariness, looking around. Who is it? Who exactly is it? But he saw no one. All he had seen was a gigantic eye at the infinite end of the universe, tearing him to shreds. And at this moment, Killer Miles, now free of constraints, dashed forward, seizing this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and pierced his heart directly. In the distance on the rooftop, Su Chi looked at the spinning top on his fingertip and mused to himself. I didn't expect that this thing, combined with a concrete ability, could actually materialize the damage from the illusion realm directly into reality. Name: Fingertip Universe. Damaged version. Type: Spiritual ability equipment. Function: Spin the top before the rotation ends, can pull any target into an illusion, and based on the spiritual state of the target at the end and the spiritual attribute cause spiritual damage. Consumption: 100 spiritual power. Usage conditions: Profession must reach sequence 9, spiritual power 98. This item has growth potential. Collect 5D level pollutants to upgrade it. In other words, if used correctly, I might have the capability to solo kill beings with lower spiritual power than mine. Of course, there are limits. When using the fingertip top, if you want to participate to increase the realism of the illusion realm, you can't move, which is why Su Chi didn't enter the fray. And now, Su Chi looked at the time, raised his wristwatch, and messaged that person living in Main City. It's almost over. Who won? Question mark. The other side was silent for a while. I understand. After a brief delay, another message appeared. From now on, no matter what happens, I will give my all to support you. Chapter 176. A new force in Night City. The Hustlers' Chamber of Commerce is officially established. Sigong Chang looked at the wristwatch for the latest news transmitted from Main City and nodded, sitting in his seat unable to take his eyes off it for a long time. After a while, his pupils trembled slightly and he closed the panel. Then he walked to the glass of the floor-to-ceiling window, looking down from high above at Night City, filled with money, madness, and cruelty. I didn't expect. He actually did it. Giles Crowd and the Black Emperor were wiped out, and the forces dispatched by Main City fled in disarray. Illegal land had become the turf of the Hustlers' Chamber of Commerce, which no one had ever heard of before. It took just 10 days. Since Sigong Chang had been approached by Su Qi, he naturally investigated the other party's information and everything about the Hustlers' Chamber of Commerce. Regarding him personally, he only discovered his civilian information and that he was a courier for a pollution treatment delivery company 10 days ago. As for the Hustlers' Chamber of Commerce, its traces were found through various products flowing into Main City. He didn't know whether to sigh or admire. The storm was stirred by the power of one man. All the factors were not caused by him, yet he used them all. Sigong Chang said with a hint of bitterness, including myself. Since the other party really did it, the things he had promised before needed to be fulfilled, not only for the sake of his daughter but also for his principles. This was not merely a matter of verbal support. Let's begin. Sigong Chang, as one of the top 3 giants of Life Group, began to mobilize all his influence, whether cutting ties, making deals, or using them as bargaining chips, all to engage in a fierce confrontation with the other magnates of Night City. He was joking before, saying that he would take half the assets of Life Group. Sigong Chang pinched the bridge of his nose as he looked at everything on the panel. Now it seems that whether he meant it or not, that statement is likely to come true. Night City and illegal land suddenly calmed down. It was as if nothing had happened. But, in the unseen clouds, there were undercurrents raging and bursting, with no bloodshed, no battles, no energy and bullets spraying everywhere. Only the gloomy, cold smiling faces of various magnates were continuously gathering in the highest levels of Life Group through the holographic screen. However, they were determining the changes in the upper structure of Night City. Life Group was being besieged by the other 2 giants and the magnates leading them. Sigong Chang's expression was stern as he looked at the various notifications of supply halts and production facility shutdowns. He could withstand it. It's just that the veins on his scalp were throbbing, and Su Qi, for his part, didn't ask questions. He was very understanding, knowing that Sigong Chang must be very busy lately. If he was busy, he shouldn't be disturbed, just occasionally sending a few encouraging words. This is it? Can you handle it? If you're a man, fight them with steel. And hurry up, forget about those insignificant profits. Damn it, are these insignificant profits? Sigong Chang, alas, could not write a short essay, otherwise he would have written one long ago. He even directly made a video call in a fit of anger, which Su Qi promptly rejected. Sorry, the signal's bad over here, and 2 guys video chatting is just weird. Sigong Chang swore that if he hadn't already boarded the thief ship, he would have backed out right there and then. Su Qi wasn't really rushing him, but rather encouraging him to separate from the powers that be in Night City. The cleaner the split, the more tightly he and the Hustlers' Chamber of Commerce would be bound together. After all, current benefits were fleeting like clouds, and Little Night City was just the starting point. He couldn't possibly stay here long. Although Simon, as the deputy of the chamber, had learned a lot and had both the courage and the ability, it just wasn't enough. With Life Group standing behind the Hustlers' Chamber of Commerce, stability was assured from all aspects. Su Buxian, there's been a major incident. Sigong Sun sent a voice message. She had just recovered her life force and could maintain it for a while. He thought about what he could do to help her when he left. She knew he was the man from the hospital and was more open about it. What happened? Su Buxian, my father. His complexion has been terrifying these past few days. I've never seen him like this before. Sometimes he sighs, sometimes he's lost in thought, and more often than not, he's irritable. As the one mainly responsible, Su Qi paused before saying, Men have a few such days every month. Tell him to drink more hot water. And dealing with those nobles was indeed troublesome, so the irritability was normal. Sigong Chang? After finishing the chat with Sigong Sun, Su Qi closed the panel. Sigong Chang, you've really got an eye for business. The support from the other side was thorough. This move placed Life Group's future squarely in his hands. If it were just for the sake of his daughter, he wouldn't have had to go to such lengths. But he did it anyway. Su Qi watched as the Super Dream Protocol analyzed EMTs, atom hammer, and various high-powered prosthetics, along with a variety of potions and miscellaneous items. He had also prepared a grand gift for him, to keep his spirits up. On the 12th day, Life Group announced the assimilation of illegal land into the corporation, and its rebranding as Future City was declared. This news caused a sensation in Night City. Online, it was evident that Life Group was scaling back a significant portion of its operations. At the same time, the Hustlers' Chamber of Commerce also officially became a legitimate organization with the endorsement of Life Group. Many of the illegal and evil sites in illegal land were overthrown, the ruins were cleared, and housing was being rebuilt. Meanwhile, the factories left behind by Black Emperor and Giles Crowd were taken over for use by the Hustlers' Chamber of Commerce. Moreover, Su Qi utilized the Super Dream Protocol to set forth a series of terms and rules for the Hustlers' Chamber of Commerce in Future City. Now, the Hustlers' Chamber of Commerce, as a subsidiary of the Hustlers sect, is finally established. Whatever it might turn into later on, at least there was a foundation. After going through this painful transition, Sigong Cheng finally met Su Qi in person in Future City. He silently observed the enthusiastic crowd and their cheering smiles, which were far from gloomy. This is different from the atmosphere I imagined following a fierce battle. These people are completely different from the criminals of illegal land I've seen before. After all, Su Qi looked towards Night City. Having hit rock bottom, the only way is up, and with the radiance of the Hustlers shining down, it's normal. Sigong Cheng sighed and softly said, "Actually, it hasn't been too bad this time, mainly because all the nobles are busy preparing for the upcoming Stars Hall auction event. They've shifted their focus. After all, this event is crucial. Many esteemed guests from different worlds and higher-ups will be attending. No one dares to neglect it. And with all the nobles attending, everyone's trying to network and seek advantages." Indeed, Su Qi paused. "I can tell it's significant to you, especially since the whole of Night City is busy cleaning every street and alley." Chapter 177. Nancy. Everything is under control. Stars Hall Eve. Holographic ads rolled ceaselessly through the streets and alleys of Night City. Though Stars Hall had not officially opened, both its interior and exterior had been fully decorated long ago. Even in Night City, it was the most dazzling building, shining brightly at all hours. Guests from various worlds will gather at Stars Hall. Tickets on hot sale, only 500,000 cyber coins. Su Qi glanced at the various push advertisements popping up and said, "Simon, how many people in Night City do you think are willing to fork out 500,000 cyber coins?" This, Simon, who was currently planning with Life Group and transferring various capacities here from Night City, was extremely busy and had to frequently answer Su Qi's questions. He lifted his head. "I'm afraid more than you'd imagine, President. In Night City, besides money being supreme, there's also a strict class stratification. Everyone is ranked, and if your status is low, you can't get good jobs, and to elevate your status, you must spend." Simon added, "It's not everyday consumption. There's a specific category called luxury, which includes many high-premium goods. Only by consuming these can one have a chance to elevate their status. In the past, many people, even with empty accounts or in debt, would buy presentable clothes just to maintain their status, which is vital for finding a job. But to climb higher, one must continue being sucked dry, faced with layers of barriers and restrictions and maintaining high consumption. After all, a citizen's level fluctuates according to the smart system's judgments. Thinking of saving money? Impossible. There are even loan services specially designed for level upgrades, which allow people to find better jobs, advance to higher positions. Although it looks like salaries have increased a lot on the surface, in reality, a large part goes back," Simon sighed. "That's also why, despite Lawless Place being dangerous and filled with violent criminals, there are still many people living here. And this Stars Hall event is an opportunity to raise one's citizen level, as well as for the elite to flatter many powerful forces. Simon's gaze returned to the panel. But it doesn't concern us. Really? Suchi slowly looked towards the advertisement slogan. Superstar, the legend of hosting Mr. Nancy, has arrived in Night City. He chuckled. It's hard to say. Respected Mr. Nancy, welcome to Night City. Everything you need is prepared for you. Greeting Nancy was a row of luxury sports cars, and not a few elites in person. Though they were the top tier in Night City, in other worlds, they were nothing compared to the stern and handsome man before them. Around him, massive crowds of fans cheered and shouted, blocked by various electromagnetic barriers. Nancy responded with a smile and a wave, eliciting a lot of screams. Then he got into the car. The smile on his face instantly disappeared as if nothing had happened. Mr. Nancy, we have also arranged many of Night City's top activities for you. Okay, no need for such pomp, Nancy calmly said. I want to go straight to the event now. The organizer hesitated. But those were for advertisement opportunities. Just having Nancy there for a photo would blow up. Nancy said emotionlessly, Don't make me say it twice. The organizer sweated, quickly nodding. Understood. The man wasn't from Night City, and aside from his celebrity status, Nancy's own power wasn't simple either. Challenging to handle wherever he was, the organizer didn't dare to defy him. Nancy didn't speak along the way. Looking out the car window, his seriousness stemmed from, this time no mishaps could occur. If it were beings from other worlds, he wouldn't need to care too much, just proceed as usual. But this time was different. Those attending included the Spirit Prince's heir. Previously a priest had come, and though Nancy had planned to impress, it was utterly ruined by some damn person. Luckily, a priest has their own dignity and generally doesn't mind such matters. And with the Spirit King's prestige and power in the present world naturally surpassing others, they don't serve the divine positions, especially after the gods were sealed 1,000 years ago. Many new forces emerged, and each current Spirit King fought their way to the top. Moreover, many worlds, to gain their sanctuary, plant Spirit King's shrines to defend against abyss pollution. Ah, what a headache! Nancy's headache wasn't the Spirit King. He was a super VIP. Higher-ups always carry a high distinction, rarely speaking or even intangible, not showing much. But their heirs were entirely different. Many Spirit Prince's heirs were arrogant, cruel, unpredictable. All sorts of characters existed. After all, a Spirit King has been alive for thousands of years. Some have children enough to form an army, not to mention generations of descendants. Plus, they have countless worlds under them for their heirs to mishap and wreak havoc, creating many inhumane incidents. So, nothing should go wrong this time. He only knew Spirit King's heir would attend, but exactly how many, who they were, he had no idea. However, it's not a big problem. He'll get everything prepared and control the rhythm, which is what he excels at the most. Moreover, he's quite familiar with Night City. The elites of Night City wouldn't dare make a misstep. They would rather serve their heads as chamber pots to each other if it would please these figures, so there shouldn't be any problems. Speaking of which, Nancy suddenly turned to the person in charge. I remember. There seems to be a chaotic place in Night City, called Lawless Place, right? Nancy furrowed his brows slightly. It seems like there are two forces in there. He had hosted so many shows, traveled everywhere, seen countless worlds, but none as extreme as Night City, where the cyberpsychosis always gives rise to a lot of lunatics, afraid that when the time comes. The person in charge hastily said, Respected Mr. Nancy, rest assured, those two forces were completely eradicated by us not long ago. Now, well, it's considered a legitimate territory. He hesitated a bit while speaking. Although Night City was forcibly established, to maintain their dignity and deterrence, they had completely wiped out the two major evil forces in the main city. Moreover, the Life Group also spent nearly half of their assets buying territory here and gave up on major factories, losing a large number of orders. Public opinion, interests, all had. They were actually happy to see this scene. Then I feel relieved. Nancy murmured softly. It seemed like all external factors were nearly negligible. This hosting gig seemed to become another highlight in his career. He soon arrived at Stars Hall. the massive architectural giant, akin to building another mountain on land. How many does it accommodate? 1 million. Quite a lot. Nancy raised an eyebrow. This was indeed one of Night City's most magnificent buildings, with the elites having gone all out in renovations, especially since, this time, it wasn't just the city's residents but also a large number of entities from various worlds. But rest assured, all the ticketed entrants from Night City will be in the ordinary outer area. They won't have the chance to interact with any elites or visitors from other worlds. Nancy glanced at the person in charge, squinting his eyes. Why should I be reassured about this? Shouldn't this be something you say to your superiors? The person in charge hastily said, My deepest apologies. Damn it, too used to kissing up to higher-ups and he wasn't mindful. Nancy didn't concern himself with it. Each world had its own rules and order, which he had seen plenty of. Upon entering Stars Hall, the various arrangements, holographic images, and Night City technology all were explored before the formal auction and the opening events and performances. Nancy's assistant took charge of the handover and organized the agenda for him. Boss Nancy, I've removed all the ad scripts. It's just right now. Nancy just glanced through the schedule and memorized all the processes. The person in charge twitched his face, but there was nothing he could do except find some opportunities to place ads inside the venue. He coughed. Mr. Nancy, won't you rehearse once? Or check the scripts? Are you doubting Boss Nancy's ability? The assistant, however, remained calm and adjusted his glasses. Boss Nancy is a professional. He doesn't need any rehearsal. No one can match his hosting skills. The assistant suddenly paused. A name popped into her mind, but seeing Nancy's dangerous glare, she quickly said very seriously, No one can match even a little bit of Boss Nancy. Nancy. That statement didn't seem problematic, but the pause was awkward, the biggest blunder of his life. But it's all past now, it doesn't matter. Oh, have the items needed for the program and auction been delivered? Most have arrived, but some are still on the way. Here's the list. The person in charge quickly handed over the documents. Okay. Nancy scanned through. It was indeed very thorough. He suddenly paused. Why does the piano performance have no pianist and yet takes up so much time? The person in charge grimaced. That's a program specially ordered by a big shot from above. We dare not defy, and that piano is a pollutant delivered early. We can only send EMTs to dare to get close. It seemed that the significant person was none other than the Spirit Prince's heir, a music aficionado, and even bringing a pollutant to perform on stage. Nancy couldn't say much, considering it was the Spirit Prince's heir. They could do as they pleased. When the time comes, no matter how bizarre the music that resounds, he would perform with the professionalism of a host. After scanning through all the processes and details again, Nancy felt completely prepared. Boss, need to confirm anything else? Asked the assistant. No need. Now everything is under control, he said calmly and confidently, as if holding a winning ticket. Seeing this, the person in charge's eyes sparkled slightly. As expected of Mr. Nancy. Then next, shall I arrange a dinner for Mr. Nancy? All the elites of Night City are waiting for you, and we've also invited quite a few entities from other worlds who have arrived early. Nancy calmly nodded his head. Okay. He preferred to confirm work first, then deal with these trivialities. After all, they were just part of social niceties, and Night City's arrangements were indeed good. Relaxing a bit wouldn't be a problem. Chapter 178. Speak up, you joker. At this moment, below the Life Group building, Sigong Chang sat in the second row, with Su Qi next to him, and behind them were Sigong Sun and Mrs. Sigong. The atmosphere was somewhat silent. Sigong Chang glanced at Su Qi a few times and opened his mouth but didn't speak. Su Qi said, It seems like you have something to say to me? No problem, just speak openly. I've always liked to listen to opinions. Sigong Chang rubbed his temples. Don't you think that there's one person in our family who will stick out like a sore thumb at the banquet? Who? Su Qi asked in surprise. What do you think? Sigong Chang stared at Su Qi. Su Qi paused. then looked at his assistant, who was the driver. "He's talking about you." "I'm talking about you," Sigong Chung almost yelled. His whole family was ready to leave. But then, this guy suddenly showed up and forced his way in without any warning. "Father, calm down," Sigong Sun said with a gentle laugh. "I think it's quite nice now. After all, I'm not acquainted with the others. When it's time for you to mingle, I'll just have Brother Su take me around." She looked much healthier now, could move around without a wheelchair. So she was also prepared to attend tonight's banquet and tomorrow's event at Stars Hall. "Sure. I'll show you around when the time comes. Do you know that place well? You talk about it as if it's your own backyard." Sigong Chung sighed deeply. "Actually, your involvement isn't a good thing. Although under my support, your Hustlers' Chamber of Commerce has gained a foothold in illegal land. There are unresolved conflicts with Main City, and even if they're unaddressed for now, many of Night City's elites still see you as a thorn in their side, a needle in their eyes. They might very well make things difficult for you." There were many visitors from different worlds who had arrived early for the banquet. Though it wouldn't turn into an armed confrontation, Su Chi's attendance was not so certain. The people from illegal land going to a banquet prepared by the affluent. He could already imagine the expressions on their faces when they saw Su Chi. "No worries, we are all people from the same car. You'll handle it." "I'll handle you." Sigong Cheng's eyes widened. "Who said we're from the same car? Meow? You just pushed your way in." Sigong Sun seemed to understand why her father was so irritable lately, although she experienced similar feelings when chatting with Su Chi. But perhaps he had been holding back? The car drove towards the center of Main City. This was a gathering place for the wealthy and those of high status. Those of lower statuses couldn't even get in. Su Chi clicked his tongue lightly. "That's really pitiful. When these rich people order takeout, they certainly can't get in. They must leave it at the delivery point. Why don't you think about what you're saying?" Sigong Chang looked towards a cubic building in the distance that had a floating aesthetic and said, "That's the venue for the banquet. It looks like many people have already arrived." Life Group, once a colossus, now existed in fragments. As they got out of the car, many people turned their gazes towards them. "Let's go." Sigong Chang straightened his clothes. "Madam, please take care of Sun. I'll go with him." Although this guy could be infuriating at times with some unexpected moves, he knew that Su Buxian wouldn't do anything meaningless. Every step he took must have a plan. Sigong Chang watched silently as Su Chi, who was now shaking hands with a robot and handing out his business card. What was his last sentence again? Can he take it back? This robot doesn't possess self-awareness. It's apparent. Su Chi paused. Its construction is not as sophisticated as another robot I've seen before. Russell's Tianqi Star. Overall technological level seems to be higher than Night City's, and this robot is indicative of that level. However, after all, Night City is a fusion of flesh and technology. Robots seem to have been passed over since, without a nervous system, they cannot establish a connection with the active abnormality bodies. Su Chi even just hacked into it using the Super Dream protocol. It would probably take 10 minutes to hack it successfully. After passing security, led by the reception staff, they stepped onto an automatic staircase, were carried to the elevator entrance, and then entered the banquet hall on the 16th floor. Before entering, apart from those magnates and guests from various worlds just mentioned, we've received news that Mr. Nancy, the superstar who will be hosting Stars Hall tomorrow, will also be attending tonight's banquet. Mrs. Sigong's eyes twinkled faintly, constantly checking various messages along the way. He's considered the most remarkable person here now. Is he that impressive? Of course, Mrs. Sigong said calmly. Mr. Nancy possesses not only fame but also substantial influence and a strong foundation of fans. Influence. Mrs. Sigong spoke softly. He's different from those big shots. Their presence commands respect and intimidation, but he is a star, having hordes of fans who will go crazy for him, spending money on him. In other words, if the powerful ingratiate themselves with Mr. Nancy, their benefits could potentially multiply several times over. The celebrity effect, isn't it? Not necessarily. If Evil God were to endorse a sleep mask, Su Qi would certainly foot the bill. Su Qi and Mrs. Sigong stepped into the banquet hall, the grand space lavishly decorated. His gaze swept around, with numerous question marks indicating every item in there was a luxury. At the same time, quite a few people turned their gazes towards Su Qi, their eyes carrying a mix of indifference, disgust, and gloominess. The hustlers are rooted in illegal land. Naturally, they had been thoroughly investigated, originally planning to deal with and apply pressure after Stars Hall ended, only to unexpectedly show up at the banquet now. Do you see that? Mrs. Sigong's eyes were profound, once again becoming that experienced magnate. Their gazes are very unpleasant. Of course, there's no need for you to feel angry. They look at anyone from the lower class with the same disdain. On one hand, they dread illegal land, and on the other, they feel that sharing a room with people from illegal land is degrading. Su Qi glanced at her. You seem to understand a lot, don't you? Mrs. Sigong reminisced lightly. Because I used to be one of those looked upon with those same eyes. Su Qi spoke softly. Then, shall we just do something? Do something? Mrs. Sigong murmured. There's nothing that can be done. That's just how Night City operates. That's not necessarily true. I actually brought more than 20 mini high-energy bombs with me. Mrs. Sigong was startled. What the hell are you planning to do? Don't do anything rash now. Mrs. Sigong was almost sweating profusely. Don't worry. I'm not going to use them now. That's good. Good my ass. Mrs. Sigong's eyes widened. When do you plan to use them? Su Qi gave a slight smile. Smile my foot. Speak up. At this moment, Mrs. Sigong felt as if fate were gripping her throat. She remembered with trembling heart that although his title was that of a Chamber of Commerce president, in reality, he had directly obliterated two extremely dangerous large gangs. He's an unequivocally dangerous individual. Chapter 179. Now there are two people drenched in sweat. The car carrying Mr. Nancy and his assistant appeared at the base of the skyscraper when many scions of the wealthy elite had already gathered around. The powerful, both eager to curry favor and unwilling to lose face, naturally found it more appropriate for their family members to make an appearance on their behalf. Respected Mr. Nancy, I apologize, but there are simply too many youths attending the banquet who like and admire you. And so we didn't stop them, the person in charge said respectfully. At this moment, he too had learned to be smart, flattering guests accordingly. Since Mr. Nancy had everything under control and was in a comfortable position for relaxation and with a good mood, naturally a few arrangements could be made, of course without excessive flattery. Mr. Nancy just gently squinted his eyes and smiled warmly. Hand me a pen, his assistant muttered. You really are in the mood. As his personal assistant, she could tell that Mr. Nancy was indeed in a good mood and took a pen out of her purse to hand over. Mr. Nancy picked a few young people he found pleasing and signed autographs for them. Seeing this scene, the person in charge relaxed a bit. Mr. Nancy, Miss Assistant, if you will, many people in the banquet hall are awaiting your arrival. Mr. Nancy handed the pen back to his assistant. All right, tomorrow is expected to be tiring, so let's relax a bit tonight. Miss Assistant calmly said, Boss, you can't do anything inappropriate. I'll be keeping an eye on you. Mr. Nancy felt the assistant's subtly threatening gaze and coughed. Don't worry. This isn't my first time at such an event. In the banquet hall, Miss Assistant didn't enter side by side with Mr. Nancy. She waited at the door and, after hearing applause and a welcoming speech from inside, a slight smile appeared on her face. As always, Mr. Nancy, the boss, attracted everyone's attention upon his arrival. Miss Assistant then stood a meter behind him. What followed were familiar scenes of various elites coming forward for greetings and conversation, with Mr. Nancy handling them with ease and an unperturbed, leisurely attitude without a trace of disturbance. After all, Mr. Nancy, the boss, had encountered so many powerful entities that he could remain composed even if Mount Tai were to collapse in front of him. Miss Assistant slightly smiled. The boss was such an outstanding man. Suddenly, Her eyes moved to a middle-aged man standing at a distance with a wine glass, standing apart from the other elites. Who was that? As an exceptional close proximity assistant, she always did her homework. According to the information on Night City, the man was one of the titans of the three top business conglomerates, Sigong Chung. Such a presence seemed to be ostracized. Miss Assistant sensed that something was off. Had something happened in Night City? It seemed there was a mention that two major forces in illegal land were annihilated a few days ago. At this moment, she couldn't afford to investigate the situation, only feeling that the man's expression wasn't great, looking worried and unsettled. After enough time passed, Mr. Nancy gently coughed. Miss Assistant understood that this was her signal. She smiled and began to step forward proactively, stopping other elites wishing to approach. Mr. Nancy is somewhat fatigued. He has yet to eat. Please rest for a bit too. These intercepted elites, merely second and third tier, sighed softly upon the assistant's intervention and stepped back. And then, Sigong Chung could no longer sit still, knowing that missing this opportunity meant it would be difficult to find another appropriate moment. At the same time, many watchful eyes of other elites turned towards him. They sipped their red wine calmly, observing the man who had once held a high position and then purposely severed his own arm. Mr. Nancy. Sigong Chung, holding his wine glass, walked over slowly, his tone respectful. I'm Sigong Chung from Life Group. May I have a drink with you? Life Group was currently in a trough due to various maneuvers, significantly reduced and harshly cut back, losing money by the second. Although there were reasons for his actions, and he had no regrets, it was essential to find any opportunity to change the current situation. If he could gain Mr. Nancy's support, the group might have a chance to catch its breath and possibly gain more traffic and market share, even reaching beyond Night City to trade with other worlds. This was the precious value of Mr. Nancy. Mr. Nancy did not speak, nor did he reach out his hand. He was indeed fatigued. Having dealt with top-tier elites was enough. He needed to relax and rest. Miss Assistant paused slightly, then stepped forward and said softly, I apologize. Mr. Nancy is currently preparing to dine. Please wait a moment. Sigong Chung opened his mouth, but ultimately did not continue, softly saying, Apologies for the disturbance. The other elites said nothing. Their status required no mockery, yet the corners of many mouths subtly curved up. Life Group's value was still not insignificant, but given the situation, it would soon be devoured completely by them. At the distant dining table, Su Chi was leaning on the sofa chair, nibbling on desserts while paying attention to the plethora of data models constructed by the Super Dream Protocol. Seems like it'll need all night, but that's just fine. He also noticed Sigong Chung returning with a solemn face. Failed. You could say that. Sigong Chung shook his head. Because I didn't even get a chance to speak. Beings like that simply didn't care about any of Night City's elite. Those old rivals had arranged for supervisors to follow closely, showering the other party with flattery, which put them in a good mood and earned some opportunities. There was nothing he could do. That guy is so full of himself? I was just about to ask him for a favor, Su Chi muttered to himself. Sigong Chung said helplessly, You think you two are acquainted? You speak as if it's a given. But in reality they were acquainted. Himself on the Love, Death Robots show, helping to host, changing processes, interacting with the audience. In the end, Mr. Nancy gritted his teeth, feeling grateful and reluctant to say goodbye. If that wasn't a connection, what was? Su Chi yawned and stood up. You're really going? Sigong Chung was startled, shaking his head lightly. He's already dining, effectively rejecting other visits. Your going would be futile, and should you displease him, that would cause trouble. No big deal. Su Chi picked up a dessert and walked straight over. I can share a table with him. Su Chi's figure caught the attention of others, and many cast their gazes in his direction. The president of the Hustlers' Chamber of Commerce? What does he want to do? The assistant too heard the footsteps. Why was someone disturbing them again? She turned her head slightly. Then, slightly frowned. Why did the person seem familiar? The next moment, the assistant's eyes trembled even more. Wait, looks really familiar. Why does he look just like Mr. Nancy's archenemy of a lifetime? Mr. Nancy, old boss, the assistant uttered instinctively, feeling an inexplicable danger. She couldn't help but speak up to warn him. Mr. Nancy slightly raised his eyebrows, cutting his steak. He only felt a strange numbness on his scalp, and before he could react, he saw a figure pull out a chair and sit down directly. Of all Night City's elite, all upper class, who could be so rude? The next moment, the assistant could distinctly feel her boss's body tremble. Then his gaze became stiff yet silent as he stared at the young man in front of him. Long time no see, Mr. Nancy. Suchi's smile was innocuous and contained a hint of politeness. May I sit here, Mr. Nancy? He didn't know how to describe his feelings at that moment. Sometimes encounters between people were like Murphy's Law. The less you want them to happen, the greater the chance they will. He didn't know why he was seeing this face here, and again this smile. In any case, an inexplicable unease couldn't help but rise from the bottom of his heart. And also, you've already sat down. Why ask such a senseless question? Chapter 180 Lovestruck is inadvisable. Nancy took a deep breath, not knowing why he was behaving this way. Already a gold medal host and a superstar accustomed to various circles, he was far from a newbie who needed deep breaths to steady himself. Such behavior was typical when he had just started and had faced grand events or unexpected challenges. Now, Nancy slowly set down his knife and fork. Indeed, I didn't expect to meet you again. He had regained his composure and managed to smile, though his face remained stern. Actually, when he thought about it, it wasn't a big deal. This was no longer the context of their previous encounter, so there was no need to be cautious about this young man. Why are you here in Night City? Or is it because of the Descent's strength? Nancy calmly asked Suchi. This wasn't the first time he'd mentioned the word Descent. He had encountered many Descenders, terms like missions, players, tools, skill during his shows. They were no longer secrets, simply influenced by Paradise's powers, and skills were just datafied versions of various abnormal traits. He knew more than most about those beings from Paradise. It's a long story. Long story. I'd listened to it. If it had been anyone else, Nancy might not have been interested, but when Su Buxian spoke, he felt it was necessary to understand the whole story. All right, Suchi said. 14 days ago, including myself, a total of 1,000 players, or Descenders, as you call them, arrived in this city. I was in debt when I arrived. He flashed his wristwatch. Now, even my citizen-level status is still at the bottom. Nancy's lips twitched into a smile, realizing he had worried too much. After all, what could someone achieve in 15 days? In Night City, they probably couldn't even afford a ticket to Stars Hall. He had thought the other party might cause some unforeseen trouble. Now, it seemed he had overthought it. Question mark. Suchi glanced at him. Can you tone down that schadenfreude smile? Sorry. I was born with a love for laughter. Nancy, a bit more relaxed now, raised his knife and fork again, cutting through his medium-rare steak smeared with black pepper sauce, comfortably popping it into his mouth, gently chewing. His assistant watched this scene, knowing her boss was back in good spirits but hadn't expected him to actually burst into laughter. It was a genuine laugh, not the forced kind he usually reserved for others or his fans. Though indeed, it was a laugh at others' misfortune. Since you're naturally inclined to laugh, it seems you are indeed the perfect spokesperson for the Hustlers' Chamber of Commerce. Suchi murmured. Nancy squinted his eyes. The Hustlers? Chamber of Commerce. Hadn't this guy called himself the sect hierarch of the Hustlers sect during the show? Now what's this about the Hustlers' Chamber of Commerce? This is my business card. His assistant immediately reached out, ready to take it, as she usually managed such exchanges, which all the dignitaries of Night City did, unless it involved a higher-up. But Nancy gestured for her not to and wiped his mouth with a napkin before taking the card, saying, To come up with a Chamber of Commerce in just 15 days and even make it here, You do have remarkable abilities among the many descenders, having at least clung to a dignitary. Despite having been dominated by Su Qi in their broadcast show, Nancy had seen Su Qi's performance and even the priest present had admitted defeat. His abilities were indeed stronger than he had imagined. However, when Nancy saw the self-drawn business card handed to him, he fell silent. "Are you sure this is a business card?" Su Qi replied. "What else could it be? A meal ticket?" "No, I just feel it's doodling." Stay calm, after all. There wasn't much time, and it was a bit rushed. Plus, these are limited editions hand-drawn by the sect hierarch of the Hustlers himself. Su Qi patted him. "Keep it. Study it well. Its future value is immeasurable. Keep it, my ass." Nancy nearly threw the business card back. But thinking about it from another angle, there was even less to worry about. If the business card was this crude, then this so-called Hustlers' Chamber of Commerce must be even cruder. Stars Hall had established hierarchical sections to prevent ordinary people from mixing with the dignitaries, with vast amounts of EMT security as a barrier. Put nicely, it was for the safety of the viewers. Put bluntly, it was to keep certain people from catching the eyes of dignitaries, those in power, or even the spirit prince's heir, to avoid displeasure. "All right, I'll keep this business card." Nancy coughed lightly, gently placing it back in his pocket. "Consider it a token of our second encounter." Actually, after his previous disastrous show appearance, some audience members kept bringing up Su Buxian, causing Nancy's veins to bulge during the few subsequent shows. Hence, Nancy eventually learned and studied a bit, especially in terms of commentary style, which indeed brought more passion and influenced the audience's mood, leading to some gains. Of course, he definitely wouldn't admit that. But the endorsement you just mentioned, Nancy shook his head with a mild smile. "I'm afraid that won't work. You've seen, all the big shots have made high offers, but I haven't agreed to any, as it's not just some casual matter." Rejecting Su Buxian felt genuinely satisfying. Moreover, the matter indeed wasn't that simple.